Sox down by a run in the last of the ninth inning. They were in need of a hero, and it was Jeff Stone. He got the game-winning hit, driving home Wade Boggs. Jeff Stone in his first at-bat of the year. Red Sox win the first game. Then in game 2, it was Roger Clemens, talking about heroes. His first outing in 25 days. He gave them 6 shutout innings, and Tom Brunansky here hitting one of his 3 home runs. The Red Sox won it 7-5. Cito Gaston knows the Jays have to win today. They're hoping for postseason play in this great old ballpark, Fenway Park. The Red Sox can almost make sure that happens with a victory today against the second-place Toronto Blue Jays. Boston a winner Friday and Saturday. Now 2 games up on the Blue Jays. The standings are self-explanatory, I think. Hello, everyone. John Miller, along with Joe Morgan. We're here to bring you the ball game today. For the Toronto Blue Jays, the whole season has come down to this. And, Joe, you would think that the Blue Jays would be feeling the pressure and be a little bit tight today.
Well, I think they will be a little tight, John. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But they deserve to be tight. They've lost the first 2 ball games here. But being tight doesn't keep you from winning a ball game. Sometimes your adrenaline can carry over and help you to win a ball game. But no doubt, if they lose today, they will not be mathematically eliminated, but they will be psychologically eliminated. And that's even more important. And in the words of that great philosopher, former teammate of mine, Tony Perez, today we do or today we die. That is what the Blue Jays face today.
So that is what they're looking at in Boston. They're hoping for a big party tonight here in New England. The Blue Jays are hoping to stay alive for the next few days, maybe even set up a playoff on Thursday. They've got their ace left-hander, Jimmy Key, going today against Greg Harris. Let's go back now to baseball studios and Bill Patrick.
All right, thank you very much, guys. The Red Sox-Blue Jays matchup isn't the only game in town, so to speak. There's still the matter of settling up the National League East, and that could happen today. The Pirates have clinched at least a tie. They send 21-game winner Doug Drabek, their ace, up against Joe McGrain and the St. Louis Cardinals. While the Mets, they're at home with the Cubs once again. Steve Wilson goes against Sid Fernandez. For the Mets, it's pretty much cut and dry. They have to win their last 5 games to win the East. That's right, I said 5 games. That means winning today and sweeping 4 in Pittsburgh. That would include a 1-game playoff, and then hope that the Bucks lose today. Meanwhile, it is all over out west. Last night, the Reds lost to the Padres, but they won the West as the Dodgers lost to the Giants. The Reds learned they were champions during a rain delay against the Padres. They become the first National League team to win wire-to-wire in a 162-game season. We'll also be keeping our eye on Cecil Fielder's quest for 50 homers as the Tigers host the Twins. And it's the final day at Comiskey Park. An 80-year history comes to an end as the White Sox host the Seattle Mariners. But up next, from a historic park in itself, Fenway Park, the Red Sox host the Toronto Blue Jays. Jimmy Key pitching for the Blue Jays. He's unbeaten in his last 3 starts. And for the Red Sox, it's right-hander Greg Harris. He's winless in his last 3. Enjoy, everybody.
John Miller and Joe Morgan back at Fenway Park in Boston. The crowd is gathering. It's going to be a big one, a sellout, standing room only. Here now, the Sears Die-Hard starting lineup for the visiting Toronto Blue Jays. It will be Mookie Wilson in center field. Tony Fernandez is at shortstop. Kelly Gruber, a grand slam yesterday at third base. Fred McGriff at first base. He's slumping. George Bell is in left field. John Olerud, the designated hitter, batting 6th. Greg Myers will be doing the catching. Manny Lee plays second base, and in right field, Junior Felix.
And the defense for Boston will have Tom Brunansky in right, Ellis Burks in center, Mike Greenwell in left, Wade Boggs at third, Luis Rivera at short, Jody Reed at second, Carlos Quintana at first, Tony Pena doing the catching, and Greg Harris on the mound.
Harris has won 13 games for the Red Sox, but not many lately. Here's his first pitch to Mookie Wilson, and it is ball 1. It's a beautiful day in Boston. Still feels like summer here. Temperatures in the 70s, and the wind is blowing out. It's a summer-type wind blowing out toward left. There is ball 2 as Mookie showed bunt. Mookie batting .262.
John, I think it's very important for Toronto to get off to a good start in this ball game, because the longer you go with the score tied or that you're trailing, the more pressure will build up as the game goes along. So they need to get off to a good start.
2-1. Harris in his last 3 starts has lost all 3, and his earned run average is 9.42. This is a fellow who's always been a reliever throughout his major league career until this year. It's ball 3.
He's only faced the Blue Jays the 1 time this year, and he pitched well. In fact, he had shutout baseball for 7 innings. So he's done well against the Blue Jays this season.
3-1 the count, and that's strike 2. Mookie's a tough man to walk.
No joke, because he got his first 2 pitches were balls out of the strike zone. Then he swung at the 3rd pitch, which was inside. You know, normally your leadoff hitter will take 2-0 if the guy misses with the first 2 pitches, or 3-1. He swung at both 2-0 and 3-1 in this sequence.
Mookie takes it personally if you have the take sign. 3-2, and he fouls that one away. Mookie has had 569 at bats, and he has walked only 31 times.
Well, see, to point out, to show you the difference, Ricky Henderson would already be at first base.
Ricky might already be at second base.
Well, that's true, too.
Tony Fernandez on deck. That's into center field. Drifting back is Burks, way back onto the warning track, and he makes the catch. Looks like the ball's going to carry well today at Fenway. It certainly was during batting practice.
Well, you mentioned there's a nice breeze blowing out a little bit toward left field, and it's also a nice clear day.
72 degrees is the game time temperature. 81% is the humidity. There is a slight chance of rain. Partly cloudy, and the wind is blowing out toward left. Now Tony Fernandez comes up. Switch hitting shortstop. He'll bat left-handed. He's been hot in September and has lifted his overall average to 275. 0-1. Dave Phillips is the home plate umpire. Veteran umpire, one of the best in the business. Strike 2. Harris is not a real hard thrower, but he's got an excellent curveball.
Real good curve.
That's a foul ball. Tony Pena was going to throw the ball to third as if they had struck out Fernandez, but Phillips calling it a foul ball.
It's another fastball, and Fernandez just gets a piece of it. Pena picks it up, tags him, but Phillips said it was a foul ball.
Two strikes to count. Fernandez backs away. The Blue Jays have not scored before the 7th inning in this series. Mike Boddicker pitched 6 shutout innings on Friday, and Roger Clemens 6 shutout innings yesterday. The difference was that was all Clemens pitched.
The breaking ball, the good curveball, just a little low.
Fernandez fouls it back again. 1-2. Cito Gaston, manager of the Blue Jays, and things a little bit different this year than last when he could do no wrong. Taking over for Jimmy Williams early in the year. And the Blue Jays won the critical ball games in the final weekend of last year against Baltimore. There's strike 3. Fernandez chasing the breaking ball.
Well, when Harris gets ahead of you, he can throw breaking balls and get you to chase some pitches. This pitch is actually out of the strike zone. It's a curveball. You can see it's low and away. But with 2 strikes on you, you will chase the curveball. What you have to do is keep him from getting ahead of you with the fastball.
Here's Kelly Gruber. He has had an MVP stretch run. He hit a grand slam yesterday in the 9th inning. It was too little and too late, as it were, but nonetheless, he gave the Blue Jays a ray of hope in the 9th inning. And he has 29 RBIs in the last 19 games.
If it wasn't for Kelly Gruber, this would already be over. The Boston Red Sox would have a 3 or 4 game lead at this time. But I think Kelly Gruber has really responded to the challenge this year better than ever before.
Curveball, that's foul. Right past John McLaren, the third base coach.
There are the numbers that Gruber has had in September. Look at that, 30 RBIs in September alone. June and September were his big months.
Outside, 1-2 to Gruber. We'll talk about MVP, and you don't hear Gruber's name mentioned.
Very little, except we talked about it. We mentioned him, but
we don't have a vote.
We don't have a vote. Most of the talk centers on Ricky Henderson and Cecil Fielder. Rightfully so. Those guys should be mentioned, but Kelly Gruber should be mentioned as well.
Here's the 2-2 pitch, and he swung and missed at a wild one, and he will reach first base.
This is what I'm talking about. You will chase the breaking ball with 2 strikes. You will not chase it normally if you're ahead in the count. Gruber's behind in the count, so he chases this breaking ball. It bounces in front of Pena. He cannot block it. Ball gets away, so Gruber goes down to first base safely. That's why it's so important as a hitter that you do not let Greg Harris get ahead of you with 2 strikes, because he will get you to chase the breaking ball.
So Gruber is at first. And here is Fred McGriff. Now McGriff has done just the opposite of Gruber in September. He has disappeared. Ball 1. Pena with a throw to first, almost threw it away. McGriff has not had so much as a run batted in, not one, since September the 11th.
Pena sees Gruber just casually going back, and he tries to pick him off, but he almost throws it away.
That's a base hit for McGriff. Gruber will stop at second. Burke's up with the ball, and that will bring up George Bell.
I think one of the reasons that McGriff, to follow your trend of thought, hasn't done as well in September is because he's a first ball fastball hitter. There's a first ball and there's a fastball, and he lines it into center field. Now what happens with runners in scoring positions, the pitcher do not throw you a fastball first pitch down the middle of the plate. They start nibbling with the breaking balls and etc., and he doesn't handle that well with men in scoring position.
Now here's George Bell. And Bell, who long has been the heart of this lineup, but you see his average down to 261. He had the physical problems. He had the problem with the tearing in his eye. Put him out of the lineup for a while. He's only just this weekend gotten back into left field. And they need him now to step forward. 2 on, 2 out. The curveball misses.
I think I've expressed my respect for George Bell, on previous telecasts, because I think this guy is a clutch RBI man. He's a guy that can do the job for you in tough situations, and they are in a tough situation now. So George Bell is the guy that I look to step forward today, he along with Kelly Gruber.
Bell, since the 3rd of August, has only 1 home run. Now that's in 166 at-bats. Just 1 home run. Hitting only 217 in that time.
I don't think there's any doubt that he's had some problems picking up the baseball.
That curveball snaps in there for a strike.
Because those are definitely not George Bell type numbers.
So he was having the problems. He went into a slump. Then he had the eye problems.
And don't underestimate the mind. Part of that could be psychological too.
2 on, 2 out. He threw another curveball. Or a slider. Tightly spun, that one. 1 and 2.
When Greg Harris gets in trouble, he's going to the breaking ball. That's its best pitch. He's going to either the good curveball or the slider. He will use both of those pitches whenever he gets in trouble.
Gruber at second, McGriff at first, ready to go on anything. He's going in the dirt, and Bell would not offer. I saw him do that to Gruber. That's how this got started. Gruber swung at a curveball in the dirt that got past Pena and reached base.
Well, Pena does a better job this time. He just lets it hit him in the chest. The last time it ricocheted off of his glove and bounced away.
Sun coming out at Fenway now. The final day of September, and the Red Sox are hoping to make it truly the final day of the pennant race. If they win, they will have effectively done so. 2-2 the count. That is knocked down by Rivera. They're going to wave Gruber home. Here comes Rivera's throw. Chief! And the Blue Jays have gone ahead 1-0.
You have to give Kelly Gruber all the credit in the world for hustling right there. He made up his mind that he was going to score, because if he slows down at all, he would have been out at the plate. George Bell gets the breaking ball. It's low and away. It's a perfect pitch by Harris. Lines it in the hole. Nice attempt by Rivera. He knocks it down. Now he looks up. Gruber's going all the way. Gruber with a hard slide gets to the plate. You see, knocks Pena's foot away. Pena's trying to block it. Look at his left foot. He's blocking the plate with his left foot. Gruber knocks it out of the way and goes in to score.
Now John Olerud, 2 on, 2 out, but a run is in. Strike one with a curveball. So the Kelly Gruber strikeout has become a run.
Now Boston, but that's the pitcher's mistake. It was a wild pitch, even though he struck the hitter out.
1-1 to Olerud. Olerud went nearly 3 weeks, in fact more than 3 weeks, without starting a game. Part of that had to do with George Bell, because when he came back he could not play the field. He could only DH, and Olerud is a DH.
George Bell has a problem at first base. He's stretching his knees. I don't know exactly what it is, but he's called timeout. He's trying to stretch his right leg.
He's had a lot of knee problems over the years. He's had some knee surgery.
You would think that a place like Boston with natural turf, though, would not bother his knees very much. This is a fine field. This is a good place to play. AstroTurf puts a lot of stress on your knees, and the natural turf, of course, cushions.
It's a ball and 2 strikes now to the rookie John Olerud in the pennant race.
If I'm on the Toronto Blue Jays, I just refer back to what has happened here in the first inning. Ever since the man got in scoring position, every pitch has been a breaking ball. Every pitch has been a curveball or a slider. So you refer back to that if you come up in that situation later in the ballgame.
1-2. See if he tries to sneak the fastball. He does, and he didn't. Knocked down by Rivera again, and McGriff is going to hold. McGriff was not, didn't look like he was hustling.
He was not running full out. I guess he thought the ball was going to go through the infield.
21.
Kelly Gruber's ball was in front of him so he could see it, and he went all the way. This is a ground ball. It is a fastball that tails away up the middle. Rivera's diving all over the place. He gets a glove on this, but to me, if McGriff is running all the way, by the time he runs this ball down, watch how the ball goes over toward right field. He has to run over there, pick it up, turn again, and throw. McGriff is coming around third, and he was actually going toward the plate, but the third base coach stopped him.
Well, McGriff, I had my eye on him when the ball got away, and he was not running full out at that point. But then McLaren started speeding him up.
He definitely did not get a good start.
Well, when McLaren sped him up, as if he started to wave him in, and then when he saw where Rivera was after he came roundabout, then he held it. Here's Myers with a count of 1 ball and no strikes. The bases are loaded. A great opportunity for the Blue Jays. They've had 3 straight hits. That fastball misses.
See, Myers is in a perfect situation here because with the bases loaded, he can't afford to nibble and keep throwing you the breaking ball. Now he has him 2-0. He can set on a fastball, but he should also make the fastball be exactly where he wants it, because he's in complete charge right now.
Here comes Bill Fisher, the Red Sox pitching coach. He's on his way to the mound now to visit with Greg Harris, who has had his problems. Harris has never been in a situation like this. He's always been a reliever and generally a middle reliever.
Right. I think Bill Fisher is coming out to talk to Harris about being too fine, being too careful, trying to pitch a shutout. I think he's saying you have to go after these guys and get them out. And this is the play earlier, ball off the glove of Rivera. Now Kelly Gruber's running all the way. This ball actually didn't go as far away from Rivera as the ball that he dove and kept McGriff from scoring on. There's Gruber knocking Tony Pena's leg off the plate. Pena had the plate blocked, but Gruber just knocked his foot away as he slid in hard.
And the Boston bullpen is getting busy. The 2-0 delivery. That is right to Quintana, and that should take care of it. So the would-be big inning ends up as just a 1-run inning. We thought it might be 2 there for a moment. 1-0 Toronto. Here, scoring early for a change in this series. Now the Sears diehard starting lineup for the Olde Towne Team. It'll be Jody Reed at second base. Carlos Quintana, first base. Wade Boggs is at third base. Ellis Burks, the big home run and RBI man this year, center field. Mike Greenwell, red hot on the stretch in left field. Dwight Evans, the designated hitter. Tom Brunansky, yesterday's hero, in right field. Tony Pena is the catcher, and the shortstop is Luis Rivera.
And the defense for the Toronto Blue Jays will have Junior Felix in right. Mookie Wilson is the center fielder. George Bell in left. Kelly Gruber at third base. Tony Fernandez is the shortstop. Manny Lee at second. Fred McGriff is at first. Greg Myers does the catching, and on the mound, left-hander Jimmy Key.
And Jimmy Key, although you think of Fenway as being a bad place for a left-hander, has a lifetime record of 4-1 in this ballpark and a 2.53 ERA. So, in fact, 2 years ago, almost to the day, when the Red Sox went to the playoffs, in his final start of that year, he pitched a 1-0 shutout against Boston in this ballpark.
Well, he is definitely capable of holding the Red Sox down because he throws a sinker. He can turn the ball over, keep the ball away from these big right-handed hitters, and that takes the wall out of play. And he has a good breaking ball, and he can change speeds well. So he does have a good repertoire of pitches to pitch here in Fenway Park. And when you look at his statistics, he's given up more hits than innings pitched. Thus, he has that 4.14 earned run average.
And part of that was he was off to a slow start. He got hurt. Took him a while to get back into his groove. And since then, however, he's pitched well. As Jody Reed comes up, his record is 9-5 with a 3.17 ERA since coming back from the disabled list. So he was well over 5 before that, and right around 3, which is what you figure from Jimmy Key since. Curveball that misses for ball 1.
Key is a guy that needs his control. By that I mean not just throw it over the plate, but be able to move the ball in and out on the corners.
Last time he faced the Red Sox was in late August in Toronto, and he pitched 7 shutout innings against the Red Sox. Popped up Jody Reed, but the ball is back out of play. 1-1. Key went 7 innings, gave up just no runs and 5 hits, but had no decision, and Boston eventually won that game in the 9th inning. It's been Key's problem, though, talking about going 7 innings. He's not been able to go 9.
Well, I think that's what separates the Roger Clemens and the Dave Stewarts from the other guys. They can go 9, although Roger, of course, has been injured, but normally he is a 9-inning pitcher, and so is Dave Stewart.
Fastball misses, and it is 2-1. Key has had 26 starts and no complete games. 8 1/3 has been his longest outing of the whole season. Toward the wall and left. This one has a chance. Bell is back, and it's off the wall. Mookie Wilson plays the carom, but Reed is there. We may see a few balls hit the wall today with the wind blowing out.
Well, what happened was Jimmy Key got behind in the count and had to come in with the fastball. And this one's over the middle of the plate in. And Jody Reed hits it off the wall. George Bell goes back like he has a shot at it. Now he's going to play the carom and try to hold him to a single. Not possible. Mookie Wilson throws it back in, but Jody Reed is already standing at second base with a double.
That is the 45th double of the year for Jody Reed, and that ties him with George Brett for the league leadership. In fact, the major league leadership in doubles. This is a great ballpark if you're going for the league leadership. Great ballpark to play in. Quintana showing bunt, taking ball 1. The sun has disappeared behind a cloud. It is 1-0 Toronto, last of the first. Both Reed and Quintana have gone in slumps here in September. That fastball misses. There's the other Joe Morgan, the manager of the Boston Red Sox. 2 years ago, they were talking about him working Morgan's magic when he took over the ball club at mid-year. They won the division. And now he's a controversial figure here.
Well,
Some love him, some hate him.
Well, that means he's in charge now.
Into right field. Reed is going to tag up. The catch by Felix. Now, he has a very strong arm, and Reed is not going to test him.
Although he was way off line, but he has a strong enough arm that he can keep him from moving up on that short fly ball.
Now, that's not what they want to see. They want to see him hit the cutoff man with that throw.
Exactly. Well, we did a couple of games earlier. I've seen Junior Felix throw the ball over the cutoff man 80% of the time. Here he comes up and he just fires, and that's way over the cutoff man, way over everybody's head. But he has a strong arm, and every once in a while he'll throw it accurately. But I've seen him miss a lot of cutoff men this year.
Interesting way to put it. Every once in a while he throws it accurately.
Yeah. Well, we've done 6, 7 Toronto Blue Jays games this year, and I've seen him do that on several occasions.
Now here is Wade Boggs. Runner at second, 1 out. That's a strike. Boggs has seen his lifetime average fall below 350 this year. This is,
my gosh,
this is going to be his worst year. He's hitting 305.
Real bad.
His worst year ever before was 325. That's outside.
His lifetime drops below 350, huh?
Down to 347.
Oh, okay.
So now he's on the borderline for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I know all those guys that are playing are really feeling sorry for him this year. Letting him try to see what the real life is all about, how the other half lives.
That's a base hit for Boggs. Rounding third is Reed, heading home. Here comes Felix' throw. It's there, but he's safe. He slid past the tag. Nice slide. It's all tied up. Boggs holding it first.
Two things happen here. First, I can't believe how far they're playing Wade Boggs towards center field. That's a routine ground ball to second base. Watch this, a ground ball. I mean, that's right at the second baseman. I mean, they're playing him too far around. Jody Reed comes around, accurate throw by Felix. Nice slide by Jody Reed. Actually, the catcher needs to be a little closer to the plate. See, if the catcher is a little more to the plate, he could keep him from touching the plate, but it's a nice slide by Reed. Nice call by the home plate umpire. He could see that he did get it with his hand.
Now here is Ellis Burks. That's a double play ball to Lee. Fernandez 1 to first, 2. A double play. So the inning is over, but the Red Sox have tied it up. They've played 1. And the game is tied at 1. This is John Miller along with Joe Morgan back at Fenway Park. It's a 1-1 game as we go to the second. The Blue Jays, a couple of plays that turned that first inning around.
Yeah.
McGriff not scoring on the ball off the glove of Rivera into shallow center. And then Reed scoring with the beautiful slide, but also the base hit by Boggs, catching that man, Manny Lee, in an odd position.
Yeah, I mean, too far up the middle. You have the pitcher in the middle of the diamond to protect the middle.
Greg Harris, the pitcher. The count to Manny Lee, 1 ball, 1 strike. Lee, the 8th place hitter, batted .281 through the end of June and has hit only .217 since then. He was doing so well before that they traded Nelson Liriano, the other second baseman. Gave Lee the everyday job, and he has since seen his batting average fall precipitously. There is Gene Tennis, the hitting instructor, on the left, and Cito Gaston, the skipper of the Blue Jays.
That's Tennis minus his mustache. I had never seen him without it till today.
Gene Tennis. That mustache will be forever emblazoned upon the memory of Joe Morgan.
Yes, it will.
18 years ago. Tennis has some planet pressure experience. In fact, there's ball 4 to Manny Lee. Gino with the 4 home runs.
72.
What was it that? It was a World Series, I believe.
Yeah. 1972 World Series. He just tore us apart. I was with the Cincinnati Reds then, and he was with the Oakland A's. That was the first of their 3 world championships in a row.
How come you didn't run into the mound and say, hey, don't throw that pitch to this guy?
I did. Several times.
Well, they threw at least 4 of them anyway. Must have been fastballs, too.
Yeah, 3 fastballs and a hanging curveball. Like you say, I will always remember that.
Now I know it's emblazoned upon that memory. Here is Junior Felix, switch hitting right fielder. Felix has the abilities to become a great player, but as we've seen already with his throwing, he's very much of a raw talent. He did not play much baseball.
Well, that explains it a little bit.
He was a track star. Played baseball only when he was about 15, 16. And even then just for when he wasn't running track.
But as you mentioned, he does have a lot of raw ability. Has a strong arm. He runs well. He can hit. He can hit with power. So no doubt he is going to be a good player.
Joe Hesketh, a left-hander, he started warming up in the Boston bullpen. Again, he was up in the first. Back to the bag, Manny Lee.
I think that shows how important Joe Morgan thinks this game is. There's Joe Hesketh. I don't think there's any doubt. If he can win today, you know he's won a pennant. That's the thinking that he's going along with.
Foul ball. Interesting stance by Junior Felix. He's just a little small guy, but he is enormously powerful.
He has a strong upper body and he has strong legs. I think that's where he gets a lot of his power from, because he can hit the ball a long way for a small guy.
And they learned that here Friday night in the 9th inning. Boston was ahead 5-4, and the first pitch Junior Felix saw from Jeff Gray. Lee is back. Felix hit into the Toronto bullpen, which is pretty good poke in straightaway right field.
Real good poke.
380 feet to straightaway right field.
There's his stance. His left foot is actually close to the plate. His back foot, his front foot is way away.
2-1.
The danger with that type of a stance is that you will step, your upper part of your body will go towards your step, which is to the right, and pull you off the plate. You have to keep your right shoulder in if you're left-handed. You have to keep the right shoulder toward the pitcher, or else you're not going to have anything to hit with. He closes his shoulders well, but if the habit you have of getting it open too quickly can cause you problems.
That's a base hit in the right center field. Brunansky over to cut it off, but going to third base will be Manny Lee, and Felix content with a single.
These bases that they're not taking are going to cost them in the long run.
You think he should have been thinking double all the way?
Yes, he should have. That was a bullet. I mean, watch this. It's a hard line drive, and no one can cut it off. They're all running at an angle away from the ball. Watch Brunansky as he comes in. He's running away from the ball. Manny Lee goes around the third real easy. I mean, it was a tough play for them to hold Felix to a single, but he helped them out.
But I think, again, watching him run, he was thinking single all the way.
Right. When you're going to make a double, you have to think double out of the batter's box.
That's ball one. Well, most teams teach, do they not? When you hit the ball, think double, and when you get around first, then assess.
That was a line drive in the right center field, too, away from the outfielders. Like I said, if they don't score a lot of runs today, the one base at a time routine is going to cost them.
See the Red Sox with their infield double play depth. Mookie swings at the off-speed delivery. It's a ball and a strike. And again, even in the first inning, you talk about the base running and little things. Mookie Wilson started off 2-0 and swung at a couple of bad balls in that sequence, and then ended up flying out. And back to first is Junior Felix. Felix also, that's the other thing about him settling for a single. He has tremendous speed. In the dirt, and it is 2-1. Felix can steal a base. He has stolen 12, however. He hasn't learned that aspect of the game. Now Pena's going to go out and talk to Greg Harris, who is really struggling. In this inning, he's been behind everybody.
Well, in order for him to be successful, he has to be ahead in the count. That way he'll get a lot of guys to chase his breaking ball out of the strike zone. But you're not going to chase a lot of breaking balls out of the strike zone if you are ahead in the count. The hitter, that is.
Joe Morgan with Bill Fisher, his pitching coach, alongside, and they've got their bullpen busy. Joe Hesketh is up out there. Now, of course, the pressure is on the Blue Jays. If the Red Sox lose today, they still have the advantage.
Yeah, they still have a one-game lead with 3 to go. But they also have the Chicago White Sox coming in, and you can never count your chickens, as they say, before they hatch, because the White Sox are a good team. No, I wasn't that Gallon Post.
Felix is going. Safe. His 13th steal.
Well, see, he knew he could steal the base anytime he got ready, so he didn't want to take a chance on being thrown out, trying to stretch that single into a double.
Oh, that was it.
Yeah, that was it. It's a breaking ball, good pitch from Harris, but a breaking ball pitcher allows the base runner to get a good jump because he has a high leg kick and the ball is a little slower getting to the plate on the breaking ball than it is a fastball.
2 men in scoring position. The Red Sox keep the infield back, however, as Mookie Wilson bounces it foul. We're early in the game. Nobody likes to gamble early in the game with the wind blowing out at Fenway in particular. So they'll give up a run here. They want to stay out of the big inning, which for the second consecutive inning the Blue Jays are threatening to put together. Bloop into shallow left center field. Greenwell has it. Here's the tag, and Lee is going to try it, and he makes it. Felix holds it second, and he has to get back. 2-1. Not much of a throw by Greenwell. Looks like he's hurting.
Yeah, he hurt himself. He was running toward towards center field, and he tried to right himself to throw it, and it seemed like he slipped, and he just threw it sidearm. It's a fastball. He tries to sneak by Mookie Wilson. He hits it off the fist. He bloops it in the shallow left center. There you see Greenwell's right leg slipped out from under him as he tried to throw. But coming in to score is Manny Lee, and it's 2-1.
Mookie Wilson with the pop fly gets the RBI, and here is Tony Fernandez, another man in scoring position. Only one out. Toronto ahead 2-1. Fernandez struck out his first time. Greenwell, by the way, is playing hurt today, and we'll tell you why in a moment. That's a strike on the inside. Yesterday, he went right back to the scoreboard in left field and jumped up to catch a ball. A great catch, but he hit the edge of that scoreboard out there, which is in the left field wall. It's right behind Greenwell there. And that, you see the edge of that scoreboard, it comes out from the wall a bit, sort of a beveled edge. That's a base hit for Fernandez. Now Brunansky up with the ball. They're going to hold Felix. Now he's going to try it. It got by Harris to Pena, and he scores anyway. And Fernandez goes to second.
Well, Junior Felix is living a charmed life. Everything seems to happen well for him today anyway. Brunansky's throw gets away, and Felix is able to come in and score.
It got away not only from Pena, but even from Harris, who backed up the play, and it got right through him.
Fernandez lines at the right field. Felix is not going to be able to score, even though the ball takes about 3 hops to get there, and he was slowing down already. Ball gets away from Tony Pena, gets away from the pitcher Greg Harris, and now Junior Felix comes in to score. And moving up to second is Fernandez. There's Felix making up his mind after he sees it get through Tony Pena and Greg Harris.
So it is 3-1 Toronto. Now the big hitters are up. Here is Gruber. Swings at the breaking ball. Gruber swinging at a breaking ball in the dirt for strike 3. Started a rally in the first inning with 2 down. Ball hit the dirt, bounced past Pena, and Gruber reached base and scored a run in that inning. So one of the most productive strikeouts that you'll ever see. He'd like to get a productive base hit here now with a man at second. An error is charged to Brunansky.
No, Pena.
To Pena.
Yeah, they charged it to Pena. Normally, you're right. The throw was up the line.
0-2 now. Usually they were required to charge that to the man who threw the ball.
Well, the throw was up toward third base. Pena went over to try to stop it, and it got through him. Normally, that is an error on the right fielder.
Sometimes you'll see a throw come in where it's not even the right fielder's fault, but it might take a bad hop on the catcher or just skip on him, but the right fielder is invariably the man who has to pay for that. Not this time. Pena gets the error. 1 man is out. 2 runs are in. Foul ball.
Here's a look at the throw from Brunansky to Pena on the single by Fernandez. He has plenty of time. He throws the ball up the line. This is up toward third base. See how far away he is from
the... Terrible call.
It's a very poor officiating call because the ball wasn't even close to home plate. And Pena went over to try to block it.
That's Vin Scully's line. He'd like to write a book about official scorekeeping, and he'd like to title it, "Did Anybody Here See That Play?" I don't think the official score saw that one.
No, definitely.
If you read the rule book, you can't make that call.
Right. That ball is 20 feet up the line or more toward third base.
I don't believe the rule book allows him to make that kind of a ruling.
But they don't read the rule book. Sometimes, I agree. They don't. They use all their own judgment most of the time.
All right, we're ready to play again. The count 1 ball and 2 strikes to Gruber. A runner at second base. 1 out. 3-1 Toronto. That's a ball. This game, this inning in particular, looking a lot like the game Friday, where all kinds of bizarre things occurred. Little ground balls that looked like double plays that got through. Key errors. Gruber made 2 in the same inning. And here goes Fernandez, and he is going to be out. And then when things go wrong, they suddenly go right for the Red Sox.
Well, the ball doesn't get far away from Tony Pena. But even with that, I guess Fernandez must have broken late again. But he is out. Good throw by Pena. We only see the end of it. We can't tell how quickly he broke for third. Kind of spikes Wade Boggs. His left foot spikes Wade up on his thigh. You can see Wade hobbling a little bit.
Meanwhile, Gruber draws a walk. Ball 4. Second walk of the inning allowed by Harris. Well, the thing for Fernandez there wasn't all that much to be gained if he made it to third base. Well, certainly plenty to be lost there.
Yeah, well, I just think that he lost sight of the ball or he broke late because he should have been able to make it if he would have decided quick enough, but he obviously lost sight of the ball.
Here's Fred McGriff.
He would have made it easy if he'd have waited, huh?
Joe Morgan maybe thinking like, here comes Morgan, by the way. He's already calling for Hesketh. Remember Casey Stengel when he managed the original Mets in 1962, and he said his immortal quote about that club was, "Hey, can anybody here play this game?"
Well, Joe Hesketh will be coming in.
Good luck to him.
Yeah.
So Gruber's at second base. Will he stay there? Will they pick him off?
It's this simple for the Mets. If they stand a chance, they have to keep winning. But they are not winning at the moment. Andre Dawson, top of the first at Shea. That ball's out of here. His 27th, a 2-run shot. Hector Villanueva scoring ahead of him. 98 RBIs on the season for Dawson. And the Mets trail it 2-0. Let's go back to Fenway.
And there is Joe Hesketh on the pitch now for the Boston Red Sox, a fellow who has faced both the Mets and the Cubs and a lot of those National League teams many times. Hesketh had been with the Montreal Expos throughout his career until this year. He got released. He ended up in Atlanta. They released him, and the Red Sox acquired him. Hesketh has even made a couple of starts in September.
When I first saw him, he came to the major leagues with Montreal, and I was still playing. I thought he was going to be a very good pitcher. He had good stuff, and then he had arm problems, and since he suffered the arm problems, he's really struggled.
Runner at second, 2 down. Here is Fred McGriff. That is a base hit. Can Gruber score? I think he's going to. There won't even be a play. Every ball is played cleanly. It was just a routine base hit, Joe. Something went wrong, obviously. Fred McGriff with his first RBI in nearly 3 weeks.
Well, I mentioned he was a first ball fastball hitter, and Hesketh comes in out of the bullpen a little cold, and he starts him off with a fastball right down the middle, and he lines it to right field. And the ball they're playing him deep enough that there's no chance for Brunansky to try to throw out Gruber, and Gruber comes in to score easily.
Yeah, I thought Gruber might fall over or something. They had one the other day. Did you see that where Kenny Williams ran into his third base coach in a crazy play? George Bell takes ball 1. So Greg Harris went 1 2/3 innings. He gave up now 4 runs. He's charged with all 4 of them. 5 hits. He walked 2. He threw 2 wild pitches. He struck out a batter who reached base, and probably should have given up at least another run in that first inning, and maybe more in this inning, but Fernandez got thrown out trying to take that extra base. We were talking during the break, Joe. Looks like almost as if Fernandez said somebody's got to take the initiative on the bases. Yeah.
So I agree with that theory.
I mean, when the ball didn't get that far away from Pena, but you don't have much time to decide that, right?
Well, the real key is it seemed like maybe the other Blue Jays were playing a little tighter by only going 1 base at a time. And Tony Fernandez wanted to be aggressive, show some aggression on the bases, and he was out. But like you say, sometimes aggression is good.
That's a bloop, and Reed will not be able to get it. Base hit. This is what the Jays have been waiting for, from McGriff and Bell, to give them some production. I mean, how do you make up for 2 guys that important not producing anything for a long period of time?
Well, that's why they're 2 games behind starting today. Not that they would have, these 2 guys could have helped them win the games against Boston, but they could have won a couple of games before they got here if these guys were hitting.
Now here's John Olerud, and the sun is coming out in Boston again. Not that you'd know it by the visage of Joe Morgan. He's not looking too happy right now. 2 men on, 2 men out. 3 runs in. 4-1 Toronto. There's a strike. Olerud is hitting .347 against left-handed pitching, and he doesn't face many. He's trying to offer a case that maybe he should face more.
That's the sign of a good left-handed hitter. It means he stays in on the left-handed, keeps his front shoulder in.
That was a close one.
Tony Pena really wanted it.
He's talking to Phillips about it. Oh man, Dave.
If you could hear some of the conversations at home plate sometimes, it does get a little strange.
1-1 the count. Ball 2 on the slider. They say Ricky Henderson is one of the more talkative. He likes to work an umpire right away. If they calls a strike on Ricky, they say Ricky goes right over and says, that's not a strike on me in my stance. 2 men on, 2 men out. Both runners ready to go into anything. Ball 3. Now you've got another lefty. Myers on deck. Blue Jays have 3 left-handed hitters and 4 switch hitters in their lineup today.
I think the funniest stories I've ever heard about a catcher and batter, Johnny Bench tells me about Ralph Garr, who used to play for the Atlanta Braves, and how he complained.
Ralph was a complainer?
Ralph, with the umpire, he asked a lot of questions.
3-1 the count, and it's ball 4. The bases are loaded, and now in this second inning, the entire Toronto lineup will have batted, but not Greg Myers, who was scheduled, but instead a pinch hitter. They have Pat Borders, the right-handed hitting catcher, and it looks like they're going to go to him or somebody, because Myers is going back to the dugout. And it is Pat Borders, who's had a very fine season. Borders is hitting .290. He's got 15 homers, 48 RBIs, as you see, and he certainly, against a left-hander and with the wind blowing out, has the power to reach that wall in left field. Well, this could be the game right here. There's plenty of time left for Boston to catch up. On the other hand, if it's all of a sudden 7-1, that's a little bit of a different story.
It'll make it a big difference. I think if they get a couple of runs here, it's going to be awfully tough for Boston to come back against Jimmy Key. I think that's the important point there is Jimmy Key. Wes Gardner starts to throw in the Boston bullpen.
The bases are loaded. What an inning. A walk, a single, a wild throw, a pop fly for a sacrifice fly. Foul ball. First ball swinging. Another walk. A runner trying to take an extra base on a would-be wild pitch thrown out. Whatever happened to getting 2 men on and then hitting a 3-run homer?
Yeah.
How about that for a 3-run rally?
Earl Weaver's 3-run rally.
This is like a patchwork quilt 3-run rally. And now maybe more. A bloop. It's fallen. Brunansky. He's got it. Tremendous catch by Tom Brunansky. And the Blue Jays will not get those extra 2. Yesterday he hit the 3 home runs. And today he flashes some leather. It's the Blue Jays 4 and Boston 1, but it's still very, very early yet.
Nice play by Brunansky to keep 2 more runs from scoring. Brunansky comes in and he makes the patented sliding catch for the outfielders. That's a very tough play, to be sliding and still be able to keep your eyes on the ball and gauge where it's going to fall.
Well, it kept the Red Sox in this ball game. Would have been 6-1 had he not caught it. Might have even gone past him, and 3 runs could have scored, and the inning would have still been going. Here's Mike Greenwell. Now, yesterday we told you Greenwell hit the scoreboard making a great catch early in the game, and he's got quite a bruise on the back of his right shoulder and also on his right knee.
But he's playing.
Yeah, he's in there. I asked him, I said, "You can take a day off today?" And he said, "Are you kidding right now? I'll take the whole winter off." 1 strike the count. It's low for a ball. Jimmy Key has allowed left-handed hitters this year to hit a composite batting average of only 171. He's like a slump waiting to happen for left-handed hitters. But the only other lefty in the Boston batting order is Boggs, and he has already singled against him. Curveball for a strike, and Greenwell didn't like the call. We're at Fenway Park. This is the only division in baseball, the American League East, that has not yet been decided. And the Red Sox are trying to decide it today. Pops him up. Shallow left. George Bell. He caught him. A fan almost tried to catch it there. 1 away. And now Dwight Evans. By the way, Greenwell with 22 RBIs, hitting .346 in September. Proven himself to be a money player. Speaking of which, here is Dwight Evans. Now, Dwight has had a long and distinguished career. The elder statesman in this club now. He's been playing hurt all year long. He had a stress fracture in his lower back. Turned into a bone spur the way it healed, and he's just been in pain all year long, particularly when he runs. He has not played the outfield the whole season. But yesterday he stole a base.
Yeah, I saw that.
He said he just thought the time was ripe. He thought that he could do it, and he did it. Moments later, Brunansky hit a 3-run homer. That curves in there. Dwight Evans has been on 10 Red Sox teams that were in first place. See the new catcher, Pat Borders, that were in first place at the All-Star break. Only 3 of them went on to win.
Not a good ratio.
So he knows all about
hitter.
Yeah, he knows all about the curse of the Bambino, as they say here. 1-1. That's low. I figured that they'd have a little better ratio. But this is the 3rd time, or the 10th time since he's been here, that they were ahead of the All-Star break. No living Red Sox player has ever been in the postseason 4 times. Dwight has a chance to become the first. And that's among living players. You go back to the 1900s, the 1910s, up through 1918. The Red Sox were the dominant team at that time. But Ted Williams, Joe Cronin, Bobby Doerr, Carl Yastrzemski, the players who've had their numbers retired, there they are. And of course, we discussed this earlier this year. 9/4/18, September the 4th, 1918, was the date that the Red Sox won the World Series in 1918. In a game pitched by Babe Ruth, and they've never won since. It's just a coincidence that those 4 numbers got retired later on and were put
in that order.
3-2 to Evans. Fouled away. In fact, how about this for the curse of the Bambino, Joe? That's the novel, or not the novel, the historic book written by Dan Shaughnessy, The History of the Red Sox. September the 4th, 1990 was the last day Roger Clemens pitched this year until yesterday. Strike 3 call on the outside corner. Well, that's vintage Jimmy Key right there.
Exactly. He kept looking for the outside edge, and he finally got it. This is a good fastball right on the outside corner. Right there, Pat Borders doesn't have to move it at all. Dwight Evans thinks it's outside, but Dave Phillips says no, strike 3.
Here's Tom Brunansky. Well, he hits that same spot right there. 0-1.
That's why he can pitch so well here and be, pitch well here and be successful against the right-handed hitters. Keep that fastball tailing down and away.
Tom Brunansky, yesterday he brought out names like Jim Rice, Carl Yastrzemski, Fred Lynn, Hawk Harrelson, Ted Williams, Bobby Doerr, joining some rather select company in Red Sox history as becoming one who has hit 3 homers in a game. He had to try to hit one there. 1 and 2.
It's unique to hit 3 home runs. Obviously, it's more unique to hit 4, but that's tough to do in a ball game because usually they want the pitchers, after you hit 2, they'll start walking you or whatever. They will not allow you to hit 3.
It looked easy yesterday.
Yeah. He didn't even hit him until after the 5th inning. He hit 1 in the 5th. And usually you'll hit 1 in the 1st inning, maybe 1 in the 3rd, 1 in the 5th or something. He hit him from the 5th inning on.
And the first 2 particularly were clutch home runs. Ooh, he's gone in the 3rd ball. And Jimmy Key did what the Blue Jays needed him to do. Shut down the Sox, and the Blue Jays lead is intact. 4-1 at the end of 2. John Miller and Joe Morgan from Fenway Park in Boston. The big crowd at Fenway, standing room only. They're ready to party long into the New England evening to celebrate the weather. Tell you what, the streets of Boston were alive last night. This great city, but within the first hour or 2 after yesterday's ball game, which didn't end until almost 7 o'clock, people were walking all around the streets. People were everywhere because it felt like summertime, and everywhere you went, people were talking Red Sox. You just walk along the street and there's somebody saying, I could see maybe 2, but 3 home runs. Just stand up there and boom. People were talking about Brunansky and the Sox, and Friday, how about Jeff Stone? Here is Manny Lee. He started that 3-run 2nd inning rally with a walk, and he takes ball 1. He's a switch hitter, batting right-handed. The Blue Jays have great versatility in their lineup. They have some power, they have some speed, and they have 4 switch hitters in the lineup. Lee is one of them. Time taken.
Something fell out of the center field bleachers, and the groundskeeper picked it up.
Well, this pennant race has been such a crazy one. At every turn, just when you thought you had it figured out, something different happened. The last time we were here was Sunday night baseball, Labor Day weekend. The Sox won their 10th in a row. That's a base hit for Manny Lee. That's the 8th hit for Toronto. Joe Hesketh, the left-hander, the 2nd Boston pitcher. But they won their 10th in a row, and Toronto was 6.5 out. It looked like it was all over.
Well, we were talking about the matchup. It's a fastball away from Manny Lee, and he goes the other way with it. A good piece of hitting. Left-handers' fastball usually tails away from right-handers, so if you go the other way with it, you'll usually be a lot more successful than you will if you try to pull it. Yeah, when we were here, it looked like we were talking about the matchup, Oakland against Boston in the playoffs. Both teams had a 6.5 game lead at that time, remember?
That's right.
The A's had a 6.5 game lead over Chicago, and Boston over the Jays.
And then Oakland came to town Labor Day evening, a game we also televised, you and I, at ESPN. Oakland pounded them and scored 5 runs in the very first inning of that game, and it was almost as if Boston was never the same from that inning until this week. This could be 2. Rivera to, wait a minute, what happened?
Well, he couldn't get the ball out of his glove. Maybe it's not only the Blue Jays playing tight, it's everyone playing tight in this ball game. Well, I guess you can expect a little bit of that, but that was a routine double play ball. Felix grounds a perfect double play ball to Rivera, so he can't get it out of his glove. And when he finally gets it over to Jody Reed, no chance for the double play at first base. But even there, Manny Lee doesn't even slide. Watch Manny Lee. He doesn't even slide. He runs out toward the outfield. I don't know how they're playing today.
It was very odd because Junior Felix has great speed, and you'd think Manny Lee would have been right in there trying to break up the would-be double play. No sure thing. I mean, you say it's an ideal double play ball, but if he can hit Jody Reed, he can with
maybe Jody Reed throw it away.
Yeah.
The idea is that's the way you're supposed to play.
Now here's Mookie Wilson. 2 balls, no strikes. He's a switch hitter batting right-handed. That's a slow tap. Boggs cuts over. He specializes in those slow bouncers. Felix moves over to second base. And there is the second out. Tony Fernandez coming up. But
it's a chopper by Mookie Wilson. Big from on the right side. It's going to take him a little longer to get to first. Boggs cuts it off. And it becomes a pretty routine play after he cuts it off.
Tony Fernandez, the hitter, switch hitter. He also will now bat right-handed. He has struck out and singled. 1 for 2. 4-1. Toronto ahead in the third. Well, the Blue Jays came storming back. They got hot. The Red Sox got incredibly cold. And just a few days ago, it looked like the Red Sox were the long shots. I mean, you go back just to Tuesday after a ball game here, and people in Boston figured it was all over. I mean, they were writing in the papers. The Red Sox were a game and a half out. They looked dead. And then what happens? 3 days later, it looks like the Sox have almost wrapped it up. But they know that should Toronto win today, you see, there's Charlie Moss, the trainer. Marty Barrett by the pole there.
And
Tom Bolton in the jacket. Dennis Lamp in a jacket there.
Jeff Stone, the hero from Friday night.
They know that should Toronto win today, it's just a 1-game advantage. Now, Toronto goes from here to Baltimore for 3. The Orioles are well down in the standings. The Red Sox have to host the White Sox. It was the White Sox who really helped Toronto enormously by sweeping 4 from the Red Sox at Comiskey Park just a couple of weeks ago. And the White Sox have proven themselves to be one of the class teams in baseball this year. 92 wins. Only the Pirates, who were 1 game better, and the Athletics have a better record than Jeff Torborg's White Sox. Our hats off to them. And Carlton Fisk, he loves this ballpark, and he has haunted the Red Sox. It's the curse of Pudge ever since they let him go. That's ball 4 to Fernandez. Well, you wouldn't figure Fernandez is going to walk with Gruber coming up, but he does. 2 men on, 2 men out, and here is a guy who can really hurt you. Kelly Gruber.
Well, he has 117 RBIs. And this ballpark is built for guys like Kelly Gruber. Short left field porch, and he's a pull hitter. And you have a left-hander on the mound. Everything is in his favor at this time.
Well, that wind, look at the flag in center. It is really blowing now. A hard wind blowing straight out to left field. Look at that. Flag is standing at attention. That is caught by Jody Reed. And so the Blue Jays leave 2 more. The Blue Jays have stranded 8 base runners in 3 innings, but they lead 4-1. We'll be back. Welcome back to Fenway Park in Boston, or as Sherm Feller, the longtime voice of Fenway, says it. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Fenway Park for today's game between and the Boston Red Sox. Maybe we can hear Sherm in the background here. Tony. Here he comes. Who is it? Pena.
Cubs, the Sox catcher.
I love Sherm. One of the great characters and the voice of Fenway for a long, long time. Here's Tony Pena. Red Sox are trailing 4-1. Rivera will follow, and then Jody Reed.
Jimmy Key has been cruising along pretty well, throwing strikes, moving the ball in and out, which he does very well.
Into left field, George Bell. No. And George, what were you thinking there? Pena is going to hold with 2. George just doesn't look like he's moving too well out there.
No, well, you mentioned earlier that he's got a bad knee, and you can see him dragging it as he walks back. So he's dragging his right knee right there, going back to his position. Pena gets a low fastball, and he just rips it to left field. And George Bell comes in, but he's coming in slow motion. Ball bounces away from him. And Pena ends up with a double, but his right knee is bothering him a lot. We saw after he hit the single in the 2nd inning, he was standing out at first base, stretching his knee. So he's having a lot of problems with his right knee.
Well, when you're up 4-1, you can take a gamble and go for the diving catch.
Well, see, I disagree with that. I think at 4-1, you play it into a single. You make them earn every base when it's 4-1. If it's a tie ball game and you have to go for it, okay. But if you're ahead, you do not help the other team. You make all the routine plays. That should have been a routine single, and you'd have a runner at first with the double play in order. So if you get a ground ball, you're out of the inning. Whereas you don't try to throw a guy out at home. You don't try to do certain things. You just go ahead and play the game fundamentally correct. Don't try to make the spectacular plays now.
Well, it wasn't as though he even came close.
Right, that's the point. That was my point.
Rivera with a swinging strike.
When the ball was first hit, it looked like a single. Play it that way. Give him a single and let him stay at first base.
But now if it's 1-1.
Yeah.
I mean, if you play that single into a double, you put the run that could put you behind it.
Well, see, I think you should play it into a single all the time. But I'm saying it is better to take the chance if you need it than you do when you do not need it. That play was not necessary. He didn't need to make that catch.
A Reagan conservative, Joe Morgan. Fly ball into shallow right field. McGriff's going out. Lee's going out. Felix is coming in, and Felix has it. And look out. Junior, tell Fred, yo lo tengo, yo lo tengo. Which is Spanish for I've got it.
I think that's about as far as I've gotten in Spanish. Right there, Junior Felix is in complete control of the play. McGriff looks up and finally sees him. McGriff is looking at the ball, so he doesn't see Felix coming in. Felix is calling it. You can see he's yelling, I have it, I have it. Yo tango, yo tango.
Now Jody Reed. We go to the top of the batting order. Runner at second, 1 out. We're in the 3rd. It's Toronto 4, Boston 1. Reed hit a double about halfway up the wall his first time. Out in left field. 4 runs and 8 hits for the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays have not only 8 hits, they've received 2 walks, 2 wild pitches, and a man has reached base on a strikeout because of a wild pitch.
And they only have 3 runs.
There was an overthrow on a play at the plate, and they have only the 4 runs. 4-1, and yet Boston fully realizing that it could well be 7 or 8-1 by now.
Yeah, they should have more than a 3-run lead at this point.
Fenway very quiet right now. That breaking ball is low. The slider, 2-0 the count. Well, again, if Toronto wins the ball game, Boston's got the White Sox coming in. If they take 2 out of 3 from the White Sox, Toronto has to sweep Baltimore. Toronto still goes to Baltimore needing help from somebody else, namely the White Sox. On the other hand, White Sox might come in here and take 2 out of 3 from Boston.
Yeah.
So that's why the Red Sox just want to get it over with right now. Popped him up. Gruber, everybody wants it, but Key says let Kelly take it. He holds off McGriff, and Kelly does take it. It's 2 down. Let's go now to the Major League Baseball studios, and Bill Patrick with an update.
All right, John, let's head to Shea Stadium, and a tough one for the Mets so far. Steve Wilson picks off Darryl Boston. Boston out at second. The tag applied by Sean Dunston. By the way, the other Darryl, Strawberry, is still out with back problems, and the Mets still trail. Let's go back to Fenway.
4-1 here. The Blue Jays trying to avoid what happened to the Mets yesterday. The Mets are in the situation the Blue Jays would be in if they lose today. Namely, they cannot lose another game and they need lots of help. Carlos Quintana trying to help the Red Sox here. He flied to shallow right his first time. 2 down, runner at second. Pena led off the inning with a double, and he is still at second base. 4-1. Blue Jays ahead. And that's the ball. 2-0. You look at Quintana. He's one of the changes the Red Sox made this year, going with the younger player. Bill Buckner, they kind of hedged their bets a little bit. Buckner started the year with the club. But when Quintana emerged, he took over the everyday job, and Buckner finally was released. A very distinguished career came to an end. There's Pena at second base, ready to go in anything. That's a fly ball toward the wall in left center. Bell is going back. Also Wilson, and Bell can't get to it, and Mookie gave up on it. Pena scores. Quintana has a double, and it is 4-2. Looked like Mookie said, "George, go ahead, baby."
Well, they were playing Quintana around to the right side. And he hits it in the left center field. Here's the pitch. It's a high fastball. Quintana hits it pretty well. George Bell is the only one you see really chasing it. Mookie Wilson was underneath. He was actually shallow. Mookie picks it up, fires it back in, and it's a 4-2 ball game.
Here's Wade Boggs hitting .369 right up to the moment at Fenway this year, with a single today and a run batted in. Ball 1. Now we see Manny Lee has moved more toward the hole
Where
at second base.
Where he should have been playing the first time.
Had he been there then, Boston wouldn't have scored then.
You
There
can
he is.
shade a guy toward the middle. Right there is fine.
Yeah,
but he was like 8 steps farther toward second base the first time up.
That's a strike in the inside. Boggs didn't think so. 1 ball, 1 strike. No way, he says.
But also, if you're an infielder, you watch the signs from the catcher. It's a breaking ball. Boggs does not like to call. I think he felt it was inside and low. But as an infielder, you watch the signs from the catcher. If it's a curveball to Boggs, you know he has a chance of pulling it.
Fernandez from the hole. Just got him. Boggs really hustling up that line. That ends the inning, but the Red Sox get a run and a couple of doubles. We're heading to the 4th inning now. Blue Jays 4, Boston 2. And fans everywhere. We're at Fenway Park in Boston. It's 4-1, or well, now it's 4-2 Toronto. And here's Fred McGriff. He has a base hit, his 3rd in a row.
He's hit the first pitch 3 straight times, 3 straight fastballs, and he's lined singles on all 3.
And he also had an RBI back in the 2nd, his first in nearly 3 weeks. And here's George Bell, who also had an RBI.
As I said, he was a first ball fastball hitter. First ball fastball lined in the center field. All 3 of them have been first ball fastballs.
So there's McGriff at first. Quintana will play him on the bag. George Bell got an infield hit in the 1st to drive in the game's first run. He then blooped a single to right center in the 2nd. He is 2 for 2. He and McGriff have 5 hits between them, but all singles. 4-2 Toronto. The Blue Jays have 9 hits all told, and the Boston bullpen is busy. Strike 1 to Bell.
I think George is going to try to hit for some distance this time. He's in a situation with a left-hander on the mound. Wind blowing out to left field. This might be a good time for him to stretch it out a little bit.
Fouls this one away. Strike 2. The Boston bullpen is busy again. Right-hander Wes Gardner warming up out there. There he is.
I think the Blue Jays, even though they're ahead 4-2, the game is really not playing well for them. They have had opportunities to break the ball game open. They haven't taken advantage of those opportunities. And you let the home team stay around, and before you know it, you'll be trailing in the ball game.
Well, in this series, for instance, Friday night, Boston is leading 4-0 back at Boddicker in the 7th. Toronto looks dead, and they score 4 runs and tie it. Then Boston is ahead 5-4 in the 9th. And on Junior Felix's homer, the Blue Jays take the lead, but they still lost the game. Tom Henke couldn't hold it. Bell into left field. Hit it off the fists however, and it's caught by Greenwell. One away. McGriff back to first.
9.
Well, the one thing you can't do if you're a visiting team here in Boston is just go to the last inning with a 1-run lead or even maybe a 2-run lead. Because the Red Sox perform so well here in Boston, you need to put them away early. And the Blue Jays just have not done that. And the other thing about this ball game is that Jimmy Key is a fine pitcher, but he's not a 9-inning pitcher. You don't expect Jimmy Key to be able to go 9, so when they bring someone else in, what's going to happen? So that's why they need to score some more runs early here.
This is John Olerud. Strike one. Olerud has had an infield single, and he has walked. Plus, that Toronto bullpen is showing some wear and tear this weekend at Fenway Park. Dwayne Ward has gotten clobbered a couple of times. Henke just didn't have it. He admitted such after the ball game Friday. Inside, 1 ball, 1 strike. Hey, John Saunders is here today. This must be a big game. He left the studio for the first time all year. First time he's been outdoors in 1990.
Is he from Boston?
He's from Toronto.
I knew that.
Sitting up here with us with his Blue Jays hat in his back pocket so as not to be too conspicuous. 1 on, 1 out in the Toronto 4th inning. 4-2, the Blue Jays ahead, and the count is 2-1 to Olerud. Joe Hesketh on the mound. He said his first moment in the big leagues was rather embarrassing. There was a runner at first, good base steal. It might have even been you, Joe, for all I know. They said keep an eye on that guy when he handed him the ball. Just don't let him steal. He went into his stretch, he kicked, he threw to first, and they called a balk. He thinks he might have some kind of a record there. Earliest balk to start a career. 2-2 the count. He's had his moments for the Red Sox. He is, as have all of these pitchers. And here in Boston, you feel that there are a few hard feelings in that clubhouse. In that, well, so much attention is centered on Clemens, and of course, why not? He's the key man. But there have been a lot of other people without whom Clemens would not have been nearly enough to get them into first place.
Very good point.
And you look at Boddicker now. He pitched a marvelous game here Friday. And when he left the game in the 7th inning, it looked like a routine double play ball to short would have gotten him out of the inning with just 1 run scoring. He's done a great job. Harris, today's starter. That's a strike called, and Olerud is down looking. He didn't think so. 2 down in the 4th inning. Borders coming up. But Harris has done a great job getting them here.
It's a slider down and away. Dave Phillips says it's strike 3, and again Olerud disagrees.
At that low strike zone, the National League strike zone. That brings up Borders, who flied out to shallow right. Brunansky may have kept the Red Sox in the game with his catch. That slider is low. But Dana Kicker, we mentioned Harris. If Harris had had those 13 wins, where would they be? Where would they be without Kicker, who came out of nowhere?
No, in Bolton.
Tom Bolton.
I definitely agree with you.
In the right field, Brunansky will have to go back a little bit this time. Borders just cannot elude Brunansky right now. Whether it be a dunker in front of him or a liner over his head, Brunansky's catching them all. 1 hit, 1 left. 4-2 Toronto. Here come the Red Sox. Last of the 4th inning from Fenway. This is John Miller along with Joe Morgan. And Toronto leads it 4-2. Burks hit into a double play his first time. There's ball 1. Well, the Blue Jays creating so much trouble in the first 3 innings of the game. But things calmed down here in the 4th inning. And the worries expressed by Joe Morgan, I think, beginning to show themselves. There's a called strike. The Blue Jays could have and should have had more runs in those first 2-3 innings.
Well, I think the key is going to be how.
The 1-1 delivery. Ball 2.
The key will be how Cito Gaston uses his relief pitchers. I think he already has a game plan, because I don't think he figures on Key going 9 innings.
That's a strike right in the corner. 2-2. In those first 3 innings, the Blue Jays put 12 men on base, plus the wild pitches, the error. There was a stolen base, but they only got 4 of those 12 men home, despite all of that. Foul and back out of play. 2-2 the count to Burks. The Oakland Athletics will be playing one of these teams. Not too long now before that gets started. Two to Burks. Three and 2.
Well, one other thing, Jimmy Key has thrown a lot of pitches in this ball game, because he has not exactly breezed through the first 3 innings.
Not many guys have gone up there and swung at the first pitch and popped out. He's gone deep into counts most of the time. 3-2 pitch on the way. Ball 4. Good at bat there for Burks. They needed him to get on, and he did. And now Greenwell.
39. Okay there. Mike Greenwell.
The outfield straight away for Greenwell. That's 47 pitches for Key. 3 innings plus 1 batter.
So it's 3 innings technically.
To go 9 innings at that pace, he'd have to throw about 140 pitches or so.
And he will not make it.
Greenwell flying to shallow left his first time. 4-2 Toronto. Toward the wall in left field. Bell is back. And he can't get it. He hits the scoreboard. Burks will stop at third, and Greenwell has a double. The Red Sox play some wall ball. It's an easy catch anywhere else.
Anywhere else, that's a routine fly ball to left field. But with the wind blowing out in Fenway today, this fly ball becomes a tough chance. George Bell goes back. He tries to time his jump, but he mistimes it a little bit, and it hits off of the wall, and runners at second and third now with no one out.
Dwight Evans coming up. Great clutch hitter for many, many years. Greenwell has hit .326 since the All-Star break, and he's hit much better than that down the stretch. And today, Fenway helps him a little bit. Did not hit the ball well at all. Sometimes a fielder gets a little tentative. He gets near the wall. He wants to make sure it's not going to be over his head, and he might have to turn and play the carom, and it can create some indecision. You see that a lot at Fenway, with out-of-town fielders in particular. Strike. Evans was called out on strikes his first time. Each of his last 7 home runs have put the Red Sox ahead. He has hit some dramatic shots this year and in almost every year of his career. The infield is backed up. Into left center field. Bell got it. Here's Burks coming in to score. The throw comes all the way through. There's no cutoff man in there. But holding at second is Greenwell, and it is 4-3. They were setting up for a throw to third base.
Well, it doesn't matter. McGriff should be the cutoff man. The first baseman has to come over. This ball is hit hard. Luckily for the Blue Jays, it stays up long enough for Bell to make the catch. The shortstop may line up to go to third, but he really wasn't lined up to go to any place. They didn't have a cutoff man to third. They didn't have a cutoff man to the plate.
Fortunately, it did not cost them because Greenwell held his ground. Now here's Brunansky. 3 homers yesterday, and it was his catch that kept this game close back in the second inning today. Strike on the outside. That outside a little extended there. They're chanting Bruno. Bruno. That's when you know you've made it in Boston. They start chanting your name at a pennant race at Fenway Park. That's a ball. Nobody warming up in the Toronto bullpen. 4-3, Blue Jays ahead. They were ahead 4-1. They had opportunities to go ahead 6 or 7-1. But now it is 4-3. With only one out, a base hit could tie the game. The 1-1 pitch. Ball 2. Tony Pena is on deck. Cito Gaston. So let's find somebody to get somebody out and somebody to set up the relays and the cutoffs. Somebody to take that extra base. The 2-1 pitch. Curves him right to Gruber. Greenwell will hold. Gruber looking him back. No trouble with that throw. 2 down and Pena. Kelly Gruber. There's Greenwell at second. Talking with the second base umpire Jim McKean. You've got a couple of guys in this crew, by the way, who are ordinarily crew chiefs. Jim McKean and Dave Phillips both. McKean is one of the, in fact, McKean and Phillips are 2 of the longest time umpires in the American League in terms of service.
It's unusual, isn't it, to have 2 guys together like this?
Up the middle, base hit. Here comes Greenwell. Mookie Wilson will make the throw, and it's offline. It's tied up, and down to second base goes Pena. It's 4-4.
Well, Tony Pena jumps on the first pitch and he lines it into center field. There's really no chance to get Greenwell. Mookie keeps the ball down. Well, not really. He just throws it away. And going down to second base is a go-ahead run, so it doesn't matter, I guess, whether you have a cutoff man or not if you give up the extra base. The ball has got to go into second base in that situation right there, or at least be able to be cut off by the infielder to keep Tony Pena from going into second.
Here is Rivera. 4-4. Now the Toronto bullpen is going to get busy. So with the as there's a strike, with the throw coming through, now a base hit could put Boston ahead. Pena should still be at first.
Exactly.
A right-hander warming up in the Toronto bullpen. Leadoff man Jody Reed is on deck. 2 men down in the 4th, 2 runs in. 4-4. Ball 1. Frank Wells is the right-hander warming up out there. Deep right field. Mookie's throw, it looked like he would have been perfect if the guy had been sliding into the on-deck circle. He would have nailed it. Play 1-2.
The truth of the matter is, with the Blue Jays not taking extra bases earlier in the ball game when they had the chance, and with them giving Boston these extra bases in the last 2 innings, that's why we're tied.
And we don't mean to pick on the Blue Jays. We're not out here to say what a terrible club this is. They're in the race. They may still win it. But with Joe Morgan sitting here, I think what we're trying to do is point out to you different little things that have conspired against the Jays. So Jimmy Key keeps Pena from scoring, but Boston has come roaring back to tie it up. Back to the 5th inning, an awful lot of baseball left to be played in this one. Now, for an update, we take you to Fenway Park. And baseball tonight's John Saunders. Come in, John.
Well, somehow, John and Joe, I was able to get a hacksaw and cut the chains loose and leave the studio to actually come to a baseball game. I had no idea that this is what one was really like, that there was grass out there on the field and that players were actually out there, and they weren't larger than in a 12-inch screen. This is really enjoyable.
First game he's ever seen, folks. What do you think, John?
I think this game is here to stay. I think it's got a future, this game of baseball.
Well,
absolutely.
listen, we can't go back on until you say, now back to John and Joe.
Tell you what, Manny Lee is stepping in against Joe Hesketh. Let's throw it back all the way across this booth to John and Joe.
Thank you, John Saunders.
John and I were looking at each other, Saunders talking about no cutoff men, no this, no that. But the Blue Jays are still in the ballgame.
4-4. Manny Lee will lead it off. He has led off every time he has come to bat. And he has gotten the job done. He has walked, starting a 3-run rally, and he has singled. Joe Hesketh, when he came into the game, it was 3-1. He promptly allowed the 4th run to score on a base hit. But since then, he has calmed things down considerably. The Red Sox have come back to tie it. Changeup for a strike. 1-1. Toronto with 4 runs and 9 hits and 9 men left on.
Now that's the story right there. 9 men left on.
The Red Sox 4 runs and 6 hits, 2 men left on base.
You would think with a team like Toronto that has speed, has, you know, some runners in their lineup.
That's down the left field line. Greenwell will cut it off. Let's see if Lee's going to try for 2. He is going to try it, and he certainly has. Now they're going for those extra bases, Joe.
Well, the play was right in front of him, and it's only 250 feet to where Greenwell picked the ball up. And he could see right in front of him whether he had a shot or not. He hesitated after he rounded first base, and then he decided to go. It's a base hit all the way. It does not go to the corner. Greenwell gets it in pretty good position here. Comes up and fires to second, and it's in plenty of time to get Manny Lee. The one thing that Lee did is he rounded first base. He hesitated for a second, then he decided to go. You have to make up your mind from the moment you hit the ball and go or stop. You cannot decide after you round first base.
There's ball 1 to Junior Felix. As you see, Greenwell made the nice throw. Felix has singled and stolen a base and scored a run, and he has hit into a force play. 1 for 2. Joe, quit playing around with your microphone, would you?
It's not me.
It's all that noise we've got in here. 2-0 the count to Felix. It works. 2-0 the count. That's a foul back out of play. Two and 1 to Felix. These are the cameras of WSBK in Boston, channel 38, from whom we are taking our pictures today. Into left center field, Greenwell going back. He turns, he looks up, gone, a home run. Just a high, lazy fly ball into the wind and finally into the net. And Junior wishes that it was not just a solo homer.
Exactly. If Manny Lee would have been at first base, it's a 2-run homer instead of a solo homer. But I think Cito Gaston is happy. As I mentioned, the Boston Red Sox will come back on these guys if they stay close or they're tied going to the late innings.
And the Blue Jays on them.
Right. The Blue Jays need to stay out in front because the pressure is on them. Junior Felix hits this fastball up on the screen. And he really hits it with just his hands. It's surprising to me that he can hit the ball so far, and he doesn't really use a lot of his lower body. He just hits it with his upper body and his hands. Real strong. 1 strike to Mookie Wilson. That's into right center field for a base hit. Brunansky over to pick it up, and Mookie will hold with a single. 3 straight hits against Joe Hesketh, and we're going to take it now to Bill Patrick for this update.
All right, and a National League East update. Doug Drabek turns, fires, and Jose Oquendo is a dead duck at second. And on the play, Chico Lean was spiked by Oquendo, but it's still scoreless. The Pirates, by the way, have no hits. Back
5-4, Toronto ahead here, and Bill Fisher, the pitching coach, is on his way to the mound.
Toronto has 12 base hits.
But we mentioned WSBK, and they're doing a fine job. They cover all of the Red Sox games that are on over-the-air television here in Boston. And however, sometimes their style is different from our style. We've missed a few pitches and this and that, and that's out of our control today. We thank them for their efforts. We're glad to be here. to take it all in and be able to bring it to you. There's Wes Gardner warming up in the Boston bullpen. One out, one on, one in the fifth. Toronto 5, Boston 4. Tony Fernandez is struck out. He is singled and he is walked. The Blue Jays have 12 hits in this game. Back to first, and Wilson is back in. Now Mookie can steal a base. He has stolen 23 and been caught only 4 times. Picks his spots. See if he can get a jump against this lefty, though, with Fernandez up there. Back in standing. Now, Joe, when you face a left-hander, if you're a base stealer, what are you looking at?
Well, there are a couple of different things to look at. One, you can look at the lower part of his body, meaning his hips, and how he closes them. You can look at his front leg.
Almost threw it away.
And how he steps. But basically, you have to be able to read his first, when he lifts his foot, whether that foot is coming to you or it's going to the plate.
Fernandez, meanwhile, awaiting him. So let's take a look. See if we can get a read on Hesketh here. Strike. Looks like Phillips has that low strike zone.
He does have a lower strike zone than most people say that the American League umpires have. The year I played in the American League, I didn't find that to be true. I thought they were pretty standard. But supposedly the American League is more of a high ball league and the National League more of a low ball league, low strike. In the National League, high strike in the American League.
Well, the American League used to have all the umpires wearing the outside balloon type protector. They couldn't really get down like they can with the inside protector.
That's why I think it's not that much difference anymore, because they've taken that balloon protector away.
Yeah, and really, why would there be a difference? Yeah.
Because they come up through the same kind of umpiring schools, etc. They're not American League umpires, National League umpires. They just come out that way.
Outside, 1 ball, 1 strike to Fernandez. And again, Fenway is quiet. No sooner do the Red Sox come rushing right back into the game to tie it in the 4th inning, and the Blue Jays have untied it. And that home run by Felix, that's what we talk about when we say a left-hander with the wind blowing out at Fenway. That's a tough assignment. Foul off the right field side. There's the skyline of Boston, the Prudential Building, the Hancock Building, 2 of the tall landmarks downtown, readily visible from this ancient ballpark. Great city, and this great old ballpark situated in Boston's Back Bay. Behind that left field wall, Lansdowne Street. Many's the baseball hit by many a Hall of Famer that's gone out there. This ballpark opened in 1912, and Mookie is back. You think Mookie's getting any kind of a read on Hesketh?
No, he doesn't seem to be. I don't think he's running. He just seems to be content on getting a good lead so that he can go on the ball when it's hit by Tony Fernandez.
The only park, as he's back again, the only park that's older than Fenway is Comiskey Park. But Comiskey Park won't exist after today. They're playing the final game ever in the long history of that park. They'll move across the street into the new Comiskey Park next season in Chicago. I'm anxious to see it. I hope they invite us. If you invite us, we will come. Pitches outside, 2-2. Gruber is on deck. After Fernandez, you get into that power. Gruber, McGriff, and Bell. A lot of home runs among those 3.
I think this is probably Hesketh's last hitter if he does not retire.
Gardner, the right-hander, up in the bullpen. Gruber, a right-handed hitter, on deck. And back is Mookie. 2-2 the count. Say Joe Morgan. There's Joe Morgan.
He's a little more pensive than I am at this particular time. I don't think he likes what's going on.
Well, he's the manager of the Red Sox. He's got the weight of 72 years of Red Sox history on his shoulders. He's blamed for everything. A lot of controversy here Friday night, even though they won. because he left Jeff Gray in that 9th inning after giving up a leadoff single. And Junior Felix promptly hit a 2-run homer, and everybody was saying, well, what was he doing?
Yeah, they were thinking he should have brought Jeff Reardon in.
I was kind of
right
thinking
away.
that too, watching it on ESPN myself.
I was watching myself, and I was surprised.
There's the view from the bullpen, or the view into the bullpen at Fenway. The Red Sox bullpen out in right center. 3-2 to Fernandez. Mookie's running into left center field, up into the wind. Burks is back at the wall. He can't get it. Now Greenwell is over to play the carom, and that will keep Mookie at third. That's the way you've got to do it in Fenway. If one man's going to commit to going for the catch, the other's got to come over and back him up, or somebody's going to be able to run all day long. That is going to do it also, just as you predicted, Joe, for Joe Hesketh.
Fernandez hits the ball well to left center field. Mookie Wilson has to stop at second base. An attempted catch by Burks, but he doesn't really come close to it. Nice backup by Greenwell. Mookie goes over to third, and Fernandez goes into second with a double. Runners at second and third, one down.
And Gardner goes into the game, and that wind blowing to left. This is a classic Fenway game. Hit the ball in the air and start running. We'll be back. There's a new Boston pitcher, Wes Gardner, hard-throwing right-hander. He inherits runners at second and third, and one out. The score is 5-4. He comes in on a key spot in this game now, with Gruber up, then McGriff and Bell. The Red Sox have the infield in,
which is unusual.
The Blue Jays need to get these guys home.
Yeah, but this is very unusual to play the infield in with runners at second and third and less than 2 outs.
That's ball one. Now, if they get Gruber out, they can walk McGriff, and they've got another right-handed hitter, George Bell. Also, Joe, in a situation like this, if they can keep Toronto to just one more run, they've done pretty well, haven't they?
Yes.
With these guys up.
Well, that's why I would figure you'd play the infield back.
Yeah, in other words, Joe Morgan here, the manager of the Red Sox, is tempting fate.
Exactly.
Ball could go through this drawn in infield, and you've got a big inning all of a sudden.
When the infield is in this tight, the infielders have no range at all. Anything that's hit sharply on the ground will go through the infield, and any bloop will go over the infielder's head. You're giving them a lot of space. You change the percentage of them getting a hit. The chance of getting a hit here are enhanced a lot simply because there's no range allowed when you play this tight.
Well, it
may
is
not
hard
matter.
to understand. What's he doing it for? What's he thinking?
I don't know what he's thinking.
I mean, the way the game has gone with the wind blowing out, it's hard to imagine that he's afraid of one more run beating him. You may need about 14 runs to
the way
ensure
it's
a
going.
win today.
That's exactly right.
And Gruber has walked. Let's go now and find out what's happening with the Mets and the Cubs with Bill Patrick.
All right, John, at Shea Stadium, the Mets are literally a hurting unit. Ryan Sandberg rips one to right center. Darryl Boston, Pat Tabler, who's got it? Boston makes the catch, but collides with Tabler, and he was down for a few moments. They attended to his left shoulder. In the meantime, the Mets are still losing, batting in the bottom of the fifth. John?
Last year's National League Eastern Division champions, the Cubs, trying to knock out the Mets today, and they just may do it. The National League pennant winners last year, the Giants, knocked out the Dodgers this weekend. In fact, yesterday. Here's McGriff, bases loaded, and that's ball one. McGriff has singled. He's singled home a run, and he has singled again. He is 3 for 3.
And he's in a perfect situation for a fastball hitter. Bases loaded, 1 ball, no strikes. Gardner cannot afford to go after him with breaking balls, because if he misses, then it's 2-0, and he has to come with 2 fastballs after that.
So will the Blue Jays at long last break this one open? They're on the doorstep.
They've been on the doorstep all afternoon.
McGriff, in 18 appearances against this pitcher, Wes Gardner, has 7 hits, 3 walks, and a home run. 7 for 15 with 3 walks.
Not too bad.
He has some history with this fellow.
And I guarantee you Gardner knows that too. He may not know the exact number of hits and at bats, but he knows that McGriff has hit him very well in his career. So he's trying to be a little extra careful here, but with the bases loaded, you just do not have a lot of margin for error.
Wilson at third, Fernandez at second, Gruber at first. All 3 of them can run. All very fast. That is through for a base hit. Mookie Wilson scores. Here comes Fernandez. The ball is juggled by Greenwell, so there will be no play. They both score. Gruber's stopping at second, and Fred McGriff has delivered his 4th consecutive hit and his 2nd and 3rd RBIs of the day. A man who had not had an RBI for almost 3 weeks.
It's a fastball away, and McGriff goes the other way. That's a good piece of hitting. Finds a hole between short and second. Tony Fernandez hustling all the way, scores behind Mookie Wilson. And that's the first time they've gotten a base hit and scored 2 runs today on one little single.
And this is also the first inning. They have 14 hits in the game. This is the first inning in which they've had any for extra bases. They've had 12 singles. 1 double in this inning by Fernandez, and of course Felix hit the home run. More bullpen activity for the Red Sox. Here is George Bell. 2 on, 1 out. That should be a double play. George looked like he was having a 2-strike swing there. He beats it to first base.
Yeah, I don't know what George was doing there.
Terrible swing.
Definitely was not a George Bell type swing. But we talked about the fact that George has had problems picking up the baseball. This may have been one of those situations. He didn't see the ball well off of from the pitcher, and they try to turn the double play, not in time. That's Gardner thinking that it's going to be a double play. Now he says look over at third.
Well, now he's got to face Olerud, who has singled, walked, and struck out. 1 for 2, left-handed hitter. Runners at first and third, 2 down now. 7-4, Toronto ahead. There's ball 1. 3 runs are in the inning. The Felix homer, and then the 2-run single to left by McGriff, which, if fate was not going with him in that moment, could have been a double play to end the inning. Just a ground ball. And then Bell, too, almost hitting the double play. Although that was actually one that was to an infielder that they could have turned. 2-0. Now, yesterday, Gardner's the man who came on in relief of Clemens after Clemens had worked 6. He walked the 2 hitters he faced, and they got him out of there. Today, he walks the first hitter he faces, then gives up the single. And they finally get somebody out. He has walked 11 in his last 16 2/3 innings. And he is now 3-0 to Olerud. Darrell Irvin, a right-hander, is warming up in the Boston bullpen. We're only in the 5th. That's a strike. 3-1. May have to adjust my estimate, Joe, where I said it might take 14 to win. Might take 17 or 18. Might have to bring in Joe Montana to win this one. 3-1 the count. Foul ball. 3-2. You see all those cameramen down there. The nation's media, the international media, also from Canada, descended upon Fenway. This is where the story is. You got all the famous sports writers from around the country. They're all here today. Photographers. This one will be well reported.
See the white lines there around the camera. That makes the camera off limits, meaning that's like the dugout.
It's out of play.
The ball goes in there, it's out of play because it's on the field.
Bell is running. The ball is lifted to left. Greenwell fighting the sun. Now the wind carries it. And he's got it right in front of the wall. Well, that flag is just straight out at attention. And that ball is really carrying out there. You saw Greenwell react to it. 7-4 Toronto. 7-4, the Blue Jays back in front of the Red Sox. We go to the last of the 5th inning. Coming up tonight on ESPN at 6 o'clock, an earlier time than usual. Baseball tonight with Dave Marish and Ray Knight. Then NFL primetime with Chris Berman, Pete Axtell, and Tom Jackson. 8 o'clock, you'll be able to see that race, the NASCAR Winston Cup, the Holly Farms 400 with Bob Jenkins, and then Sports Center at 11 with Bob Lee and Dan Patrick, and a special interview with Lou Piniella. Sweet Lou. This is his first divisional title as a manager. It came in Cincinnati. There's strike 1 from Jimmy Key to the Red Sox leadoff man, Jody Reed, who has doubled off the wall and who has fouled to third. Not fouled, he popped to third. He's 1 for 2. Well, Jimmy Key is certainly having to be a battler today with the wind blowing out. And that's a ball outside. And he's been victimized a couple of times on just what looked to be routine fly balls that were not caught. Single to left that got turned into a double besides that. And the wind's blowing out. This is not a friendly place for a left-hander on a day like this.
Well, he's only given up 6 base hits and 4 runs, so really he's pitched pretty well. I mean, you know, he's given up 4 runs, but some of them could have been avoided.
And wind seems like it's getting stronger and stronger, blowing out to left, by the way. When you check the flag out there, it is really whipping around.
I think for the Blue Jays, this will come down to how well Tom Hinkie can throw today. He has been struggling of late.
1-2, 2-2. Quintana and Boggs will follow. 7 runs and 14 hits for the Jays in 5 innings. 4 runs, 6 hits for the Red Sox. The Jays have left 11 runners on base. Into left field for a base hit. No heroic efforts by Bell on that one. He'll play it for the single that it was. Before Quintana comes up, here's a Cecil Fielder update with Bill Patrick.
All right, John. Yes, indeed. The Cecil watch continues. Cecil loses his bat on this swing. He's hoping to lose another baseball to make it 50 homers for the season. But so far today, he is 1 for 3 with a single and a pair of groundouts. By the way, Detroit's leading 1-0. John and Joe.
Bill, that's not what we were hoping for. Now, don't tease us like that. You tell us a Cecil Fielder update. Give us something big. Give us what we're waiting for, would you? A pretty good screwball there from Mark Guthrie, the Twins. What a letdown that was.
Yeah, I had already had number 50.
Yeah, I was ready to pop the champagne open here. There's ball 1 to Carlos Quintana. That is the 64th pitch, by the way, thrown by Jimmy Key. And he is not halfway through this game. The bullpen is going to be busy again. In fact, it is busy again. A right-hander up for Toronto. It's Frank Wills again. Runner at first, nobody out. Key over there. And back in is Reed. By the way, we mentioned Lou Piniella, the interview tonight. Remember the playoff game in '78, the Bucky Dent game.
Yes.
Bucky hit the home run. One of the key plays in that game, Piniella in right field battling the sun. Right field, this time of year in particular, this is that time of year, is a real tough sun field, and the sun is shining right now at Fenway. 2-0 the count to Quintana. Now the left-hander, John Cerruti, has joined the right-hander, Frank Wills, in the Toronto bullpen. We'll take you directly to the bullpen.
This is a situation where, as a manager, you have to know your pitchers. You have to know if Jimmy Key can get out of these situations and give you maybe 2 more innings. You have to know whether Frank Wills is the right guy to bring in this situation or Cerruti. You have to know your players now. You have to know who can handle this type of pressure at this time of the year.
And you saw the flag out there. That is an ill wind blowing no good for Jimmy Key.
Or any pitcher here in Fenway.
Tantalized Quintana with that changeup. Pretty good pitch on 2-0. 2-1. Boggs on deck.
There's no doubt that there are certain guys in the bullpen that you want in this situation, certain guys you do not want in this situation. Certain hitters you want at the plate with the winning run on base, and certain hitters you do not. So a manager has to know his
Strike 2.
players.
Key perhaps pitching to keep himself in this game right now. He gave up the hit, and he fell behind Quintana. And the big guys are coming up. Boggs next, then Burks, then Greenwell.
There's no doubt that Jimmy Key is a battler, and that's why he's still out there, and Cito Gaston thinks of him as a battler.
That could be 2. Not hit hard, though. Fernandez will take it for 1. To first. 2. A double play. Nicely done. Reed came in hard on Fernandez at second.
And you're supposed to come in hard, but that was a nice play by Fernandez. By taking it himself, he could get more on the throw than flipping it to Manny Lee. Now he takes a little longer. He grabs the ball, steps on the bag, and fires to first base. See, he could get more on the throw by coming towards first base. Manny Lee would have been going away from the place from second base, and therefore he wouldn't have been able to get as much on the throw. And besides, Fernandez has a shortstop's arm from shortstop position. Manny Lee from second base has a good arm, but running away from it, you turn into a second baseman's arm.
So Jimmy Key getting just what he needed, and Fernandez, the classy shortstop, gets it done. He's limping out there, by the way. He got hit. You saw in that last replay, Reed coming right in on him, and he started looking down near his left ankle or left shin. He might have gotten a hit in that area.
Well, he got hit on the left shin.
1-0 to Boggs. 1-1.
But that's the way you're supposed to go in. I mean, Jody Reed is supposed to try to break up the double play. It was an impressive slide.
Back out of play. Boggs has a run-scoring single, and he is grounded to short, 1 for 2. He has 185 hits this year. In each of the last 7 years, he has had 200 hits or more. The only man in this century to have done that. Foul tip. Strike 3. It was held by Borders, and down go the Red Sox. Jimmy Key maintains that advantage. We're heading for the 6th inning. 7-4 Toronto. Can the Blue Jays, and Pat Borders, a right-handed hitter, the catcher, hitting 7th in the order, takes a strike from the right-hander. Wes Gardner. There's the look at Fenway. The shadows are now covering the home plate area, advancing upon the pitcher's mound in the late afternoon, the end of September, near the end of the pennant race, and the Red Sox trying to win a division title in the American League East for the 3rd time in the last 5 years. Ground ball to the right side. Quintana will let Reed take it over to Gardner for the putout. 1 away in the 6th. Manny Lee coming up. Lee has a walk and 2 singles in this one. 2 for 2. The Blue Jays have 14 hits as we get a look at that play again.
But it's not as easy a play as it looks. Ball's grounded in the hole. When Quintana goes for it, that makes it a tough play for the second baseman. He has to hit the pitcher on the move, and he does so. Nice play by his second baseman, Jody Reed. It's tough to hit a moving target when you're moving as well, but he makes a good throw to Gardner.
Here's Lee. Fouls it out of play. He's a switch hitter. This is his 2nd appearance batting left-handed. In his 2 right-handed appearances, he singled. In his other left-handed appearance, he walked. 7-4, the Blue Jays. 14 hits. They have received 4 walks from the Red Sox. They have had a man reach base on a strikeout and a wild pitch, so they've had 19 different men reach base in this game in 5 innings. That's a called strike 2. And they've had 7 of them score. Fred McGriff has driven home 3 of them.
And we might add, Fred McGriff is 4 for 4 in this ball game.
0-2 the count. Hit deep into right center field. Brunansky going back. And at the warning track, he makes the catch. Well, Boston has been clobbering the Blue Jays all year long, particularly here. Even though the Blue Jays the past few years had had great success in this park. Last year, Boston took a 10-0 lead late into a game against Toronto, and Toronto won it anyway, 11-10. But that's not been happening this year. Really, the Blue Jays 2 games back of Boston, and it all comes down to the games they played against Boston. If they'd just been able to push with Boston, they'd have themselves a 2-game lead right now.
You see the wind is still blowing very hard toward left field. I think that really hurt Manny Lee's fly ball in that last swing.
Junior Felix, who homered his last time, he has 2 hits, a single and a homer, 2 for 3. Well, when you hit it to straightaway right field, it's 380. Most ballparks in that vicinity be about 360 at the most. That's straightaway right. Now to the right of that, it's still very deep, almost as deep. 302 to the right field foul pole, and then it just shoots straight out. Fred Lynn used to call that, along with Yastrzemski, they both used to call that Death Valley. You pull a ball out there, the wind's blowing in, you have to crush it anyway. You lose a lot of homers down there. This is Greenwell. And for the first time in the game, the Blue Jays do not even get a base runner. 3 up and 3 down. Burks, Greenwell, and Evans coming up. 7-4 Toronto. Ellis Burks leads it off for the Red Sox. He's the cleanup hitter. facing Jimmy Key. 7-4. The Blue Jays in front. This is John Miller along with Joe Morgan, your ESPN broadcasters. And there's a strike on the outside. Burks has hit into an inning-ending double play. But then in the fourth, he walked, leading off the inning, starting a 2-run rally that tied the game. Blue Jays then in the fifth inning untied it. 7-4 Toronto. One strike delivery. That's a ball. Blue Jays head for Baltimore for 3. Red Sox stay right here for 3 against the Chicago White Sox. That's a ball inside. 2-1. If the Blue Jays win this ball game today, keeping the pennant race going, we can assure you that ESPN will be here Tuesday night at 7:30 for the Red Sox and White Sox. Curveball outside. That'll be the first game of a Tuesday night doubleheader on ESPN. 3-1, and Jimmy Key is in a little trouble here. Does not want to walk this man again with Greenwell and Evans and Brunansky and Pena coming up. That's a slow chop. Could be trouble if it's fair. It is not. This infield is tailored so that balls like that invariably end up foul. There are 3 feet of dirt from the infield grass to the foul line, and then that dirt from the grass to the line slopes downward. They don't play that bunting game and those little infield chopper games here. You hit a chopper along the line or you bunt along the line, it's supposed to go foul.
Well, they have it tailored for their ball club. They don't have anyone that bunts, and they really do not have any real speedy guys who hit choppers. So it works to their advantage, and I think you should tailor your ball club to your team.
Joe Mooney, he's been the head groundskeeper here since the Romans ruled the world. There's a high drive in the right center field. Felix is going back, and he's got it. Now, he was kind of angled so as not to have to look directly up into the sun, but that could be trouble as we go along. 7-4 here. Let's go to Bill Patrick now for an update.
John, as you know, the Mets have to win, and that they are at the moment over the Cubs. Dave Magadan, base hit to center field. That's plates Greg Jeffries, who had tripled earlier. It's 3-2 Mets now as Magadan continues his chase of Willie McGee, and the Mets continue to chase Pittsburgh. The Pirates are scoreless at the moment.
Here is Greenwell. Talk about being on the edge. The Mets have to win, and the Pirates have to lose, or it's all over there in the National League East. That would be the
every day, huh?
Yeah.
For the remainder of the season.
If those two things occur, then the Mets can go to Pittsburgh and still would have to win 4 in a row.
Right.
One loss in Pittsburgh, and they would be out of it. Wade Boggs the hitter, 1-1 the count. And Pittsburgh has 3 left-handers all set to face the Mets this week. The left-handers, the Mets' Achilles heel has been facing left-handed pitching.
But to give a little history, John, in 1980, I was with the Houston Astros. We went into Los Angeles with a 3-game lead with 3 games to go. They won the first 3 ball games. So we ended up in a playoff. Luckily for us, we won the 4th game, but they did beat us 3 in a row to tie, so it's not impossible.
So having some life is all they can hope for at this point, and then they'll have that opportunity.
And I think that's great. If they win today, Pittsburgh loses, they know what they have to do. We have to sweep them.
And if they do that, then they'll have a playoff in Pittsburgh.
And win 1 more. Not a good possibility, but still it's a situation that can be done.
1-2 the count. Greenwell takes strike 3 call. Greenwell hitting .349 in September with 22 RBIs. He's been a big man, but Key rings him up.
Well, he's thrown him a breaking ball to get 2 strikes. Now he comes with a fastball on the outside corner. Greenwell knows it's a strike, and he just kind of walks away.
Perfect pitch if you're Jimmy Key. Not much Greenwell could have done with that one, even had he swung at it. Here now Dwight Evans. He has struck out and hit a pop fly for a sacrifice fly. Into shallow right field. Could be trouble if it's fair. Felix, no, he's there for the catch. And the Red Sox go down in order. Jimmy Key has put it together all of a sudden in the middle innings. We're heading to the 7th. Things have calmed down considerably. Into the 7th inning at Fenway Park. The wall has been dented a few times today. Cleared once. The Blue Jays are leading the Olde Towne Team 7-4. You see that scoreboard that protrudes from the wall. That's, you see Mike Greenweather. He hit the edge of that scoreboard yesterday, making a great catch. That's why he's battered and bruised today. Even Yastrzemski, back in 1980, caught one as Mookie Wilson fouls one away against Wes Gardner. Yaz caught one Labor Day weekend against Oakland. Crashed into that scoreboard, and unbeknownst to him, he broke a rib in so doing. He stayed in the game, but it was having a hard time breathing. And then they discovered the broken rib, and he was out for the next couple of weeks. And their pennant chances faded quickly that year. Down the left field line. If it's fair, it's trouble. And it's foul into the crowd. 0-2 the count to Mookie Wilson.
And I would think Mookie will not walk this time either. This is 0-2.
Mookie this time or any other time?
Well, if he doesn't walk when it's 2-0 or 3-1, you know he's not going to walk when it's 0-2.
Mookie has averaged about 1 walk per week this year. 26 weeks is the season. He has 31 walks. Sometimes you talk to hitting coaches about guys like Mookie. I mean, when he was with the Mets, it was the same story. They wanted him to be more patient. He also strikes out a lot. Boggs got a crazy hop and hit. It was a squibber anyway, and it hit the edge of that grass and kicked behind him. We'll see how they score it. I would imagine you'd have to give him a base hit.
Well, it looked like a base hit the way the ball reacted. It was hit toward the hole. He hits it right off the end of the bat. I mean, that's right off the end. Now the ball hits the dirt and reverses. It goes back the other way. Boggs tries to barehand it. Can't come up with it. It's a base hit.
Boggs did everything humanly possible on that one. That is the 15th hit for the Blue Jays. The batter will be Tony Fernandez. Mookie is 2 for 4 in the game with a run scored and a run batted in now. He had a sacrifice fly back in the 2nd. Fernandez is 2 for 3 with a walk, a single and a double.
You're talking about hitting coach. I remember they asked the guy from Dominican Republic once why he doesn't take more pitches and walk. He said you can't walk your way off that island. You got to hit your way off. I thought that was pretty good.
No, that's a good point. But also with Mookie, I remember they used to say when he was with the Mets, he has some success doing what he's doing. We don't want to take away his aggressiveness. Maybe we would do more harm than good. Tony Fernandez at the plate is a guy who has learned to take walks. He's had more this year than any others. He swings and misses. Tony has walked 69 times this year, which is not a huge total, but he used to be one of those guys. Yeah.
Before, but I think that's one of the normal arguments is you do not want a guy to lose his aggressiveness. I think you can be aggressive. You just have to swing at strikes. There's another airplane that is floated on the field in right field. The groundskeeper takes it off. That's why the delay.
He takes it back into the bullpen where the Red Sox have a lot of activity going. Jeff Gray and Darrell Irvin, a couple of right-handers. There they are. Gray number 38, Irvin number 59. Irvin thinks he plays with the Boston Red Sleeves. Strike 2 to Fernandez. Called Tony. He says his actual name is Octavio Fernando.
Well, that's why we call him Tony.
He says they kind of Americanized it when he came here, and he's always gone along with it. That's a base hit, his 3rd of the game. Now Mookie will turn and hold. Bernansky throws in behind him to Rivera. And the table is set for the big guns. Wilson and Fernandez, the two of them, have a grand total of 5 hits and a walk. They've been on base all day for these guys.
It's a fastball on the inside part of the plate. Fernandez turns on it and pulls it in the hole. Second baseman's playing over by second in double play position, so that leaves a hole on the right side. Bernansky comes up with it, fires behind him, but Wilson was alert.
And here are the Red Sox in trouble again. That's 16 hits for Toronto and 21 base runners. 22 now make it. There is the bullpen. Irvin. at the far side of the bullpen, and Gray in the front there. Pena at the mound along with Jody Reed talking to Gardner. They're thinking that perhaps Gruber might be bunting and what they'll do if he does defensively. But wait a minute. Joe Morgan has a few thoughts, and he's coming out of the dugout. Maybe they were just thinking, let's kill some time. Skip wants us to kill some time to get those guys ready. They're ready. And he's going to make a change.
Well, since they were both right-handed, he had to go over and tell umpire Tim Welke which one he wanted.
He wants the right-handed.
Yeah, he wants to. Yeah.
And which one is that? Looks like Jeff Gray. 7-4 Toronto. 2 men on, nobody out. The power is up. We'll be back. As Joe Morgan and the Red Sox look for some relief, we check the Rolaids relief man standings. Bobby Thigpen with his 56 saves ahead of Eckersley in the American League, and John Franco seems to have it all wrapped up over Randy Myers in the National League. And we should add, speaking of relief pitchers, Jeff Reardon yesterday passed Bruce Sutter to become the all-time Rolaids career points leader. So there you have it. That's the Rolaids relief break for today, Joe.
He also becomes the second guy to have 20 saves or more for 9 straight years. That was Bruce Sutter also.
Who thought he would get it when he had back surgery in the middle of this year?
August. He was out in August or something with back surgery, and now here he is back saving ball games for the Red Sox.
And his teammates are astounded because he's going in there and he's throwing some gas.
Yeah.
Throwing hard. Here's Jeff Gray. He was the closer while Reardon was out, and probably right up until Friday night when he did not close one. I mean, they gave him the shot to with Reardon out there, and Gray gave up the 2-run homer to Junior Felix. Gruber the hitter, Wilson at second, Fernandez at first, nobody out. Gruber is not bunting. Ball 1. Gruber has reached base on a strikeout and scored a run.
You can see Tony Pena still has a little of that National League strike zone in his mind. He thought that pitch was knee high over the outside corner.
Gruber has also walked twice in this game and lined out, so he is 0 for 2. Scored twice, though. Been on base 3 times. McGriff on deck, then Bell. 1-0. That's a high drive down the left field line. Is it fair or foul? Foul ball. Whoa, Millie.
Yeah, that was. And Kelly's and Gruber's saying, I never could find the ball, John, to be perfectly honest with you. I was watching and I couldn't pick it up.
Well, I saw it leave the park high over the foul pole, way over the foul pole, and then I just looked at the third base umpire. I said, Drew Culver, you tell me, baby. He said foul.
Well, there's no doubt when he hits it, it's gone. And Gruber, watch his reaction. But he's running away from it. The angle he's getting, you can't really tell. Now he has to look at the umpire. He says, wow. You got to be kidding me.
Well, I'll be a blue-nosed gopher.
I lost sight of the ball. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't find it against the gray sky there after it got so high.
Well, I saw it all the way, Joe, and my ruling on it was I'm not sure.
Okay.
2 on, nobody out. Gray may not throw that pitch again.
Yes, he does.
And right through the legs of Wade Boggs. This will get Wilson home. Fernandez is heading for third. He'll make it. And Greenwell will run the ball back. Gruber holding it first. A broken back grounder to Boggs looked like a possible double play. But Boggs came up and the ball didn't. 8-4 Toronto, the second Boston error of the game.
Well, that was a smart pitch by Gray because he had a fastball out before, so he comes inside with another fastball, jams Gruber right to Boggs, and Boggs was getting ready to go to second with it. And this is the pitcher, and you can see he's not real pleased, but neither is Wade Boggs or the other players.
Well, and Gruber's still not pleased. He thought he had a 3-run homer.
And he doesn't even get an RBI out of it.
No hit, no RBI. Gruber has one of the most productive 0 for 3s I've ever seen, Joe. Scored twice, and he gets a run home here. Here's McGriff. The infield is in. 8-4 the score. Strike.
Well, Gruber couldn't. McGriff couldn't believe they threw him another fastball. He had hit the first 3 fastballs he'd seen for base hit, 4 base hits, 4 fastballs for base hits, He couldn't believe they throw him another one, but that's Tony Pena, and he throws him another one inside corner.
4 for 4, 3 batted in. Of course, on the other hand, Tony Pena calling all those fastballs, and it's not as though they've gotten him out.
Yeah. But he figures eventually he's got to look for a curveball, and he did there right there. Another fastball.
And in the hands. 0-2. And the infield is in for McGriff with nobody out. But the outfield is very definitely deep. And so McGriff is trying to send it.
You can see McGriff was upset with himself there for missing that pitch.
Freddie's got the 3 RBIs today, 86 for the year now. He had not had an RBI since September the 11th. When it looked like just a question of would he get 100 or maybe only 97, 98. He's trying just to get it up to 90 now. There goes Gruber. Fouled back by McGriff just beneath us. 8-4 Toronto. 8 runs and 16 hits. There you see the totals on the hand-operated scoreboard out there. The other scores from around the American League. There's the Dove of Peace, which is just a coincidence. It's not a Fenway tradition. The Dove does not live here.
Looking for a seat.
There you see well, that tells the story. Blue Jays have been pounding base hits all around this ballpark, every shape and size. Fly balls off the wall, bloops, ground balls, you name it. And in this inning, they get a big help, a ground ball for a double play, perhaps. It was not played by Boggs. Again, the 2-strike pitch. Ball 1. Gray is the 4th Boston pitcher. And it's almost like asking for volunteers to jump into the volcano today. Harris 1 2/3 innings, 4 runs. Hesketh 2 2/3 innings, 3 runs. Gardner 1 2/3 innings, so far 1 run, but that runner at third, Fernandez, is his, and now Gray. People are going to stop volunteering here pretty soon.
Jody Reed calls in Tony Pena for a conference at the mound. I think Jody was getting a little impatient with all the fastballs they're throwing McGriff.
Well, that's Gray's style, right? Fastball, forkball is pretty much what he throws.
Well, I think Jody Reed wants him to mix in a forkball and stop trying to trick him with the fastball.
That's right. McGriff would like to. McGriff's not complaining. It is 1-2. Maybe he didn't feel like he had the forkball in the bullpen today. Is that the grip there for the forkball?
Yeah.
Didn't fork much, but Rivera should handle it, and he does. That is the first out. That's a big one. There was nobody at third base, and Fernandez came racing down the line. Crowd reacting there, but they walked the ball back. Tonight, 6 o'clock, baseball tonight with Dave Marish and Ray Knight, and NFL Primetime with your regular NFL Primetime crew. 8 o'clock, the NASCAR Winston Cup, the Holly Farms 400 with Bob Jenkins, and that was we'll have it in its entirety. 11 o'clock tonight, Sports Center with Bob Lee and Dan Patrick. Special conversation with Lou Piniella. Here it's 8-4. The Blue Jays ahead. This is John Miller along with Joe Morgan. The batter is George Bell, 2 for 4 with a run batted in. They keep the infield in for Bell, even though it's a double play situation.
Yeah. They've used some strange alignments. At least they're strange to me.
It's a foul that goes out of play.
In this situation, you play the infield maybe halfway. So if there is a hard ground ball to shortstop or second, you can go around, second to first for a double play. And if it's not hit sharply, you can charge it and come to the plate. But they're playing the infield all the way in. There's no way they can turn a double play on a ground ball.
But again, look where the second baseman is. You pointed this out earlier in another play.
Yeah.
Any ball that would be hit to Reed would be caught by Gray.
Yeah. And that's something that when you set up a defense, you have to put the pitcher in your defense. A lot of teams apparently do not. But the pitcher is part of your defense. Even if it hits off of him or he just knocks it down, he is a fielder in the middle of the diamond.
1 out. Runners at first and third. There goes Gruber. And Bell pops it off the fists. Foul. Bell's been swinging a lot of bad pitches these last couple of at-bats.
Well, obviously he's not seeing the ball well inside, because he's not even taking a good swing at it, and he's very upset. You see, I think it's because he does not see the ball well inside right now. I'm not going to say it's a blind spot, but he's not picking the ball up well inside.
So if you're Tony Pena, you call for another one inside?
I would think so, because he did it last time and he had a weak ground ball to second base, and he's fired him up inside a couple of pitches here, and George has not been able to get around.
Sun has disappeared. The cloudiness is increasing here. It's becoming overcast, and the wind is picking up again, blowing very hard out to left field. You see the flag off in the distance in that panoramic shot. This is the way Fenway's supposed to look this time of year. Overcast, gray. 2 strikes. There goes Gruber again. That is right through the vacated second base hole. Coming in to score is Fernandez. Gruber will go to third. Well, they had Reed way over toward the middle, and then when the runner broke, Reed
broke with him.
He broke with him, and then even that spot was opened up. Second RBI of the game for George Bell, 9-4. Toronto.
As a second baseman, you don't break right away. You have plenty of time to get to the bag. He's already at second base, and there's no reason to be. You kind of sidestep toward the bag in case the ball is hit. Gruber's running. You have plenty of time to get to the bag, but he's already standing there, which is a no-no for a second baseman. You don't break directly to the bag when the runner takes off.
So the Red Sox with a couple of gaffes in this inning, costing them dearly. Here is Olerud, and the Blue Jays trying at long last to put together the truly big inning to wrap this one up. They've had 2 3-run innings, but in this inning, Boggs lost a would-be double play ball, went right through his legs, and then Jody Reed breaking too quickly, opening that hole. And the count is 2-0 to Olerud, who is 1 for 3 with a walk. You see the infield in again, even though it's a double play situation. On deck, Pat Borders, a right-handed hitter. 9-4 Toronto. That's a strike on the outside. Difficult to understand. I mean, the general feel would be get the double play and get out of the inning, right?
Well, that's the normal situation, because if you play in, even if you hold the runner or just get a guy out,
Darrell Irvin in the bullpen,
you still have to pitch to another hitter. If you play in a position where if you get the ground ball, you can turn a double play, you only pitch to one hitter in this situation.
That's a base hit. A ball that might have been grabbed had the infield been back. Perfect illustration of it. Coming in to score is Gruber. Bell stops at second. It is 10-4. And here comes Joe Morgan again. Every Red Sox pitcher, and there have been 4 of them, has allowed a run. This 10th run charged to the record of Jeff Gray, and now Darrell Irvin will be offered as the next sacrifice to the curse of the Bambino. 3 runs are in. The Blue Jays have 18 hits, and they lead 10-4. We'll come right back. We're back at Fenway Park. The Blue Jays they've been threatening to bust this game open since the very first inning.
Yeah.
But were unable to do it. Maybe now they have done it, although it is 10-4. Friday night in this series, the Blue Jays scored 6 runs in the last 3 innings. And then yesterday they scored 5 runs in the 9th inning alone. So, which brings up the other point, which was the Red Sox playing the infield in with the score 9-4 in a double play situation with Olerud up there. And Olerud hit what could well have been a double play ball to end this inning. And again, explore the mind of Joe Morgan. Please, Joe Morgan, and tell me what Joe Morgan was thinking.
Well, he was trying to keep them from scoring 1 more run, but if you play the infield halfway, that would have been a double play. But every manager chooses to take his poison in a different manner.
Here's Borders. And of course, when we speak now, having watched what Olerud did, I mean, we have that advantage. We know what Olerud did, but that's the reason for playing it back in case he does that.
You have a chance to get out with facing 1 hitter, you take it instead of facing 2 as they have to do here.
Plus increasing the opportunity. There's a double play ball by Borders, and they get the double play. 6-4 to 3, and Darrell Irvin is the man who gets it. But the Blue Jays get 3 more runs. 1 man left. They have stranded 12 for the game. We go to the last of the 7th, 10-4 Blue Jays. Last of the 7th inning. Tom Brunansky will lead it off. What a difference a day makes. Yesterday at this time, Bruno had 2 home runs already, and Boston had a 6-0 lead over the Blue Jays. But now today, Toronto, 10 runs, 18 hits. The Blue Jays from here going to Baltimore for 3 games. The Red Sox staying here to face the White Sox. There's ball 1 of the White Sox, who just had a great year under Jeff Torborg. They've won 92 and counting. 3rd best record in all of Major League Baseball going into today. And that's a ball. They won't be going to any postseason play, at least this year. But they can certainly have a thing or two to say about who does in the American League East. They'll be in the pennant race here in Boston, helping to determine who will face Oakland in the championship series. Brunansky takes a strike. 2-1. Jimmy Key has now thrown 88 pitches. Kind of a gritty performance by the veteran left-hander.
Well, he is a battler, and that's the reason that he's out there, and that's the reason that he's remained there to the 7th inning.
3-1 now to Brunansky.
When you look at the series with the White Sox coming in to play Boston and Toronto going to play Baltimore, as we get a look at Jim Acker in the bullpen, I think things are a little bit in Boston's favor for 2 reasons. One, Eric King pitched yesterday. McDowell is pitching today. They're their 2 top pitchers. And as it's scheduled now, I guess Hibbert is supposed to pitch, Melito Perez, and Fernandez. Fernandez being a rookie, so maybe things do favor Boston along those lines. And the fact that if need be, they've got Boddicker, who could come back, and of course Roger Clemens.
Well, now Boddicker would be due back with his regular rest Wednesday.
But they may have to move them all up one day. So if they do have to go to the Wednesday, then Roger could pitch.
I wonder about that.
Well,
There's a high fly ball toward the wall in left center. It is gone. A home run for Brunansky again. His 4th in 2 days. His 5th in the 3 games of this series. And it is 10-5. Hey, be tough to leave Fenway for Bruno, who's a free agent after this year.
With a 6-run lead at the time, Jimmy Key decides he does not want to walk Brunansky, which I think is the proper way to pitch with a lead. So he goes after him with a fastball, and Brunansky hits it out of the ballpark.
15 for Bruno. And here is Tony Pena, who has a double and a single and a run batted in. Strike 1 from Jimmy Key. 10-5 the score.
I talked to Tony Pena before the game, and he feels like Roger Clemens could come back Wednesday if they need him.
Well, it'll be interesting. Although they'd really have to collapse here the first couple of games with the White Sox to consider that, wouldn't they?
Well,
I mean, they'd have to be. I mean, if they lost tomorrow and the Blue Jays won and then they were tied,
right? Then I think
they'd have to kind of decide then, right?
Yeah, I think you have to think about that.
But is that not also risky, though? What if it backfires and both pitchers pitch poorly?
It's always risky. Ask Gene Mauch.
Well, that's what Mauch did.
Yeah.
He did it in the '82 playoffs against Milwaukee.
But he did it a long time ago.
64.
64 when he was with the Phillies. He went with Jim Bulling and Chris Short on 2 days rest each time.
2-1. Caught by Fernandez. He timed his lead perfectly. 1 away. 10-5 the score here. Toronto up. Let's go to Bill Patrick for an update.
All right, let's head to Shea Stadium for the Mets and the Cubs, and Darren Reed. Oh, has he been a thorn in the Cubs' side today? His first homer of the season, now his first triple of the season. That scored the 4th Mets run as Hojo scores 4-2 New York. But it won't make any difference if the Pirates win. And right now the Pirates are winning 1-0 over the Cards in the 8th inning on a sacrifice fly by Gary Reedus. Back to Fenway.
As you see Joe Morgan here at Fenway Park, Kevin Romine comes off the Boston bench to bat for Luis Rivera. 1 out, nobody on, a run in the 7th. 10-5. Toronto ahead, as I understand it, as Key throws Romine a strike. Doug Drabek is pitching today for Pittsburgh.
Yes, he's on the mound.
He is ahead 1-0 there. Mets have lost the ability to control their own fate, at least as of today. Fernandez Fernandez throws out Romine. Easy play. 2 gone.
But without Darryl Strawberry in the lineup and Kevin McReynolds, it was an uphill battle anyway.
3.
Here is Jody Reed, leadoff man. He's had a double and a single in 3 trips, 2 for 3. Fenway Park very quiet today. The hometown 9 is trailing 10-5, getting clobbered by the Blue Jays up till now. It's a panoramic look at this old ballpark, Fenway, with the new twist there behind home plate. That futuristic looking 600 club, they call it. Got 600 seats in it, a restaurant behind that. It's almost like coming to Fenway and yet not being here. And Jody Reed gets his 3rd hit. And there's the 9th hit overall for the Red Sox. Bullpen activity. Acker, the right-hander, and Cerruti, the left-hander, both warming up. Quintana coming up, and here comes Cito Gaston to the mound. Clarence Cito Gaston. Got that nickname. He said, hey, if your name was Clarence, you'd come up with a nickname too.
And he's decided that Cerruti has given him enough of an effort today that they can hold on and win. Jimmy Key, I'm sorry, Cerruti is throwing in the bullpen, and he will remain there.
You're going to bring in the right-hander.
Acker.
Yep. 10-5 Toronto. So Jimmy Key battled him today, 6 2/3 innings. He kept his club in the game. And now Acker and the bullpen will take things from here. We'll see if they're up to it. Strike 1 to Carlos Quintana from the new Toronto pitcher. That's Jim Acker. Runner at first, 2 down in the 7th. 10-5. Toronto leading the Red Sox. Quintana 1 for 3 in the game. Check swing, the appeal. Ruled the swing by Tim Welke over at first, and the count is 2 strikes. Quintana hitting .291. Dwayne Ward now gets up with Cerruti in the bullpen.
The fastball down and in, and Quintana cannot check his swing.
2-strike delivery. Off the glove of Borders, and that will get Jody Reed over to second base. Sloppily played game. There have been a lot of things like that that have happened. Taking an extra base. In fact, they haven't had to take them. They've been offered quite often today by the defense.
I think you can account some of it to the fact that this is a tight race and there is some tension on the field.
Strike 3 called on the outside corner. And Quintana displeased with that call. The Boggs up next. So just the 1-2 hits at the end of 7. 10-5 Toronto.
Let's bring you up to date right now on what's happening in the National League East. Again, if the Pirates win, they win it all. Andy Van Slyke, the grounder to first. Pedro Guerrero comes home, and Jose Lind is safe at home, scoring the 2nd Pittsburgh run. 2-0 now in the 8th inning. The Mets are winning 5-2, but again, if Pittsburgh wins, they win the title. And if time permits, we get you out to St. Louis for the last inning of that game. John?
All right, and here we are into the top of the 8th inning. And it is 10-5 Toronto ahead for the Red Sox. Changes down the middle of the infield. Marty Barrett, the veteran second baseman, comes on. He'll hit 9th in the order. And Jody Reed moves from second base over to shortstop. And Manny Lee will lead it off for the Blue Jays. He's walked, singled twice, and flied out to deep right center. 2 for 3. Reed doing some landscaping over at shortstop. 18 hits for the Blue Jays. It's been an offensive feast for the Toronto hitters. Everybody's average goes up. Strike 1. Go right down the order. Mookie Wilson, 2 for 4. Fernandez, 3 for 4. Gruber is 0 for 2, but he's been on base 4 times with he scored 3 runs. That's a ball. Then McGriff, 4 for 5, 3 batted in. George Bell, 3 for 5, 2 batted in. Olerud, 2 for 4. Myers and Borders, the 2 catchers, have gone 0 for 5. Then Manny Lee, 2 for 3. And the man on deck, Junior Felix, 2 for 4. Strike 2 to Manny Lee. 1 ball and 2 strikes. They turned the lights on at Fenway Park now with the overcast. The wind still blowing hard out toward left field. See, it's turned into a gray New England day. Way outside from Darrell Irvin, the 5th Boston pitcher. Gray, his predecessor, went 1/3 of an inning, gave up 1 run, and it was an unearned run. Gave up 2 hits. For that, Gardner, 1 2/3 innings, 2 runs. Hesketh gave up 3 and Harris gave up 4. Foul ball.
When you look at it, really none of the Red Sox pitchers have been that effective today.
Except for this guy, Irvin. He's been incredible.
Yeah, for 1/3 of an inning. Well, he had a double play, so 2/3 of an inning.
He's only faced 1 guy, and he's pitched 2/3 of shutout baseball. Team record today. That's a foul ball. 2-2. Irvin is from Harrisonburg, Virginia. Still lives in Virginia. He was the Red Sox first-round pick in the secondary phase of the January '85 draft. He is 25 years of age, 6 feet 3 inches tall. Foul ball. 2-2. He's been up from Pawtucket 3 different times this year. They brought him up in April, again in August, and then again when the rosters expanded in September. Darrell Irvin. Boston bench rather quiet today. There's been no celebrating over there. These last 2 days they've been doing nothing but celebrating. Back goes Burks. He's got plenty of room, and there is 1 away. In the 8th, 10-5 Toronto ahead. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of Major League Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball. So pull up a chair and listen to John and Joel. Let's go back to Fenway. Marvelous work, guys. Wow. Who was that, Joel?
Probably the most recognizable voice in broadcast, introducing the 2 of us.
Here's Junior Felix, the switch hitting. So I got stuck there for just a second. Switch hitting right fielder, ball 1. He homered his last. He homered in the 5th. Flied out his last time. Junior had an interesting method of getting out of the way of that fastball.
That was interesting, wasn't it? Watch this. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. But there are a lot of things in this game today I haven't seen before. So very interesting ball game.
Hoping never to see them again.
Right.
Down the left field line. And foul back in amongst the spectators.
I know the Toronto Blue Jays are hoping not to see some of those things again, like missing cutoff men and not taking the extra base when it's there.
Gene Tennis, Cito Gaston, the brain trust of the Blue Jays. Joe Morgan.
The lone brain trust, right? He's by himself.
That's a strike. Well, when you win together. When you lose, that's all the manager's for. 1-2 to Junior Felix. Well, we talked about Morgan doing some things for which he's been getting second guess. We've done the same here today, some of his strategies, yes. But by the same token.
But that's what baseball is all about. There's always more than one way to do it.
Remember all the second guessing Don Zimmer got in the playoffs last year against the Giants when his offbeat moves didn't work. But he'd made those moves all year. And when they worked, looks great. He left Jeff Stone up there to hit, who had not batted since he was in the minor leagues, had not batted in the big leagues the whole year. And he had experienced people on the bench, but he left him in, and Stone got the winning hit.
And if Stone would have made an out, they would have second guessed him then, too.
They might have taken him out and might have lynched him.
But that's what baseball is all about. And any manager that, you know, can't take second guessing, I guess, is always going to have a problem.
Greenwell. And that's the second out of the inning. 2 down to the 8th before Mookie Wilson steps in. Let's go to Bill Patrick for an update.
All right, John, in St. Louis, the Pirates are on the verge. The pitch to Tom Pagnozzi, ripped to first base. Sid Bream flags it down over to Doug Drabek, who has a 3-hitter through 8 innings. The Pirates lead 2-0. We will get you out to St. Louis for the last inning of that game as the Pirates try to clinch. John and Joe.
Sounds like the Pirates might be celebrating before they get home to face the Mets tomorrow.
Maybe.
It's just the way they'd like it, too.
Yeah.
Here is Mookie Wilson, 2 for 4 with a sacrifice fly, 2 runs scored. He's had a hand in 3 runs. Ball 1. 2 down, nobody out in the 8th inning. Toronto 10, Boston 5. And in the Toronto bullpen, Tom Henke is warming up.
I'm sure if the Pirates win today, they'd probably like to call the Mets and say, don't bother. You don't have to show up now. Just stay home. We'll stay home.
Sure, the Mets would just as soon not show up if they're out of it. 2-0 to Mookie. Darrell Irvin to the plate. Through the middle, base hit. That is the 19th hit for the Toronto Blue Jays. We're going to have to get the Blue Jays record book out here.
Playing on AstroTurf as they have done throughout their career, I think they would have more than 19 hits a couple of times.
Well, you know what the all-time record is for the Blue Jays.
22.
No, that's close, but I'm sorry. The actual correct figure is 24.
Eh.
And they did it.
I forgot the 2 infield hits.
They. That's right. You thought they should have been called errors. Well, they got 24 hits. In 1978, it was only the 2nd year of their history against Baltimore, which had some of the best pitching around. Fernandez, this will be fielded by Barrett. Over to Quintana. The side retired. It's the first time they've retired Fernandez since the 1st inning. He'd had 3 hits and a walk since then. So the Jays have 19 hits, and they have a 5-run lead. Boston coming up, last of the 8th. Sox were hoping to clinch at least a tie today, which they would have with a victory. But it's been all Blue Jays, 10-5 Toronto. If these 2 clubs end in a tie, as of Wednesday night, we will be with you from the Sky Dome on Thursday, the Red Sox and Blue Jays, with the 1-game playoff, which would then determine who will play Oakland. Wade Boggs the hitter, Acker the pitcher, strike 1 to Boggs. Boggs is 1 for 3. Tom Henke is up in the Toronto bullpen. With the crazy things that have happened this weekend, Cito Gaston is not going to fool around even with a big lead here. $34,400 is the paid attendance today in Boston. Boggs fouls one away. And the season's total attendance in this little ballpark, the seating capacity is less than 34,000. The season's total is 2,430,000. They'll pass 2.5 million this year. They have played to better than 92% of capacity for the whole year.
Sometimes it's great to have a small ballpark because your fans realize they have to get their tickets early or they're not going to be able to get a seat. Some of the larger ballparks, fans can walk up and buy tickets anytime, and then they may decide not to come to the ball game.
Well, in fact, what happens here, tickets go on sale in the winter. People go in and they buy historically the Yankee series. That sells out before the season ever starts. People go in to get series Yankee tickets. They say, well, that's gone. They say, oh, well, give me Toronto then. Give me Baltimore. Give me Detroit.
Give me John and Joe. When will they be here?
Well, that'll be well, we sold out the joint again. We've been here 3 times, all 3 sellouts. Boggs lofts a high foul off the left field line onto the rooftop down there. 2-2 to Boggs.
It may be more difficult for Boggs in the future to come up with 200 base hits because he's going to hit third. And when you hit third, you're going to, get less at bats than you would if you hit first. And because he walks so much, it takes away at bats. In order for him to get 200 hits, he's going to have to hit around 320 to 325 every year just to be able to get 300 hits.
Well, you remember the old reliever Dick Hall?
Yeah.
And he's a stockbroker now. But he came up with a formula that's been proven correct. Each spot you move down in the batting order for a whole season would cost you 18 plate appearances.
Yeah.
So hitting third as opposed to hitting first would cost him 36
at bats.
Yeah.
I didn't need to be a stockbroker to figure that out, though, John.
Well, just so that you knew
I
exactly.
figured it out without being a stockbroker. No, but I agree with you. That's one of the reasons that, you know, he's 16 hits away now. But that's one of the reasons I feel that Barry Bonds in Pittsburgh will have to move up in the batting order. He hits 5th. And if you're using that theory, moving him from 3rd to 5th, that's 36 at-bats for him. And you always want your most productive hitters to have more at-bats than anyone else. And Barry Bonds and Bobby Bonilla are their most productive hitters.
2-2 to Boggs. Leading off in the 8th. Mookie Wilson. He'll take care of this one. Going back as the wind carries it a bit. And that is the first out of the Boston 8th. The Pittsburgh Pirates, just speaking of Barry Bonds, and they are on the verge of clinching a division title. The Pirates have not won a title since 1979, since the days of We Are Family with Stargell, Dave Parker and company. But they're on the verge of doing it. And we're going to be taking you now to St. Louis to pick it up live and to see if they're going to do it in these next few seconds. Here the score is 10-5 Toronto. The last of the 8th. Burks is up. We'll come back here, but first to St. Louis.
All right, first to our Major League Baseball studio. We're about to send you out to Busch Stadium in St. Louis, where Pittsburgh is leading the Cardinals 2-0. Doug Drabek still spinning a shutout for the Pirates. They are on the verge of clinching the National League's Eastern Division title. A win, and they have it. Let's go to Busch Stadium in St. Louis.
And these guys who've been so calm, so reserved outwardly, I got to believe they're going to bust loose. They deserve a celebration, and then have to get ready for the Mets and then the Cincinnati Reds. And again, we'll go down to the clubhouse after the game. Jim Rooker will have a number of interviews. But still, more work here in the bottom of the 9th inning. Doug Drabek needing 3 more outs. Jose Oquendo. Drabek has been outstanding. 3 hits. Superb control. He has not walked a man. He's out ahead 0-2. Sid Bream has it, 1 down. Oquendo retired. Dave Collins batting .236. Bernard Gilkey's on deck. Activity in the Pirate bullpen. Again, Drabek hasn't thrown many pitches today. Just in case, Stan Belinden, Bob Patterson. Well, for most folks, feel that it's a matter of time when the Bucks clinch. Bucks don't want to wait until tomorrow. They want to get it done today. And needing 2 more outs to do it. He got him. Second strikeout by Doug Drabek. Nice job by Mike LaValliere. And the Bucks 1 out away from clinching the National League East. Chicago scored twice in the 8th. They go to the bottom of the 8th, and New York still leading 5-4. Denny Walling, the pinch hitter. 1 ball, no strike count. Ground ball. This should be it. And the box from home, the National League East. The emotion we haven't seen for much of the year is now obviously in full presence here at Busch Stadium. Jim Leyland has kept it inside. And well deserved. What a year. The 1990 National League East champions.
So there you have it. For the first time in 11 years, the Pittsburgh Pirates are the champions of the National League East. Doug Drabek goes the distance. He probably wrapped up the Cy Young Award as well. And now the Pirates get set to face the Cincinnati Reds, who wrapped up the National League West last night. Once again, the Pirates are winners of the National League Eastern Division title for the first time since 1979. And now a 3-game series of the Mets becomes meaningless. We now send most of you back to Fenway Park in Boston.
Thank you, Bill, and congratulations to Jim Leyland and the Pittsburgh Pirates. They certainly earned it in the stretch run. They win their last 7 to the day they wrap it up.
Well, I think they did a great job. Everyone thought when the Mets overtook them and passed them for a day or so that was going to be it, that the Mets pitching would take over and go the rest of the distance. But I have to give the Pirates a lot of credit. You stay in first place, then fall out and bounce back like they have. It's unbelievable, and I think they really are one of the best teams in baseball, and I think they have a chance of winning the world title.
We're back at Fenway Park, meanwhile, where the Red Sox and Blue Jays are still trying to determine who will win the American League East. Here's the Budweiser storyline of this ball game now as we're heading to the 9th inning, 10-5. Jimmy Key, 6 2/3 innings, and don't be deceived, 5 runs with the wind blowing out today. And it was a fine performance by Key. Fred McGriff's 4 singles, 3 RBIs. Brunansky hit his 5th home run in this 3-game series. Toronto threatening to bust it open throughout the day. Left 11 men on in the first 5 innings. And finally, though, they have gotten themselves to a big lead. It is 10-5. We're into the 9th inning. Darrell Irvin is on the mound facing Kelly Gruber. Fouls one away. In that 8th inning, by the way, we left after Boggs flied out. Burks then struck out. Greenwell singled to right, and Dwight Evans hit into a force play. Those are the hitters we missed while we took you to Pittsburgh. Here's Gruber's had one of the great offers we've ever seen. He takes a strike.
Most productive offers. Huh?
He is 0 for 3, but he has scored 3 runs, and he has gotten a run home on a ball he hit. Not given credit for any of that, except for the runs scored. That's a foul. 0-2 the count. He reached base, striking out on a wild pitch and scored. Walked and scored. And then he was safe on the Boggs error in the 7th inning, on which a run scored, and later he too scored again. He scored 3. Had a handed 4 runs, and he's 0 for 3.
Some of it came from just sheer hustle, too. Moving around on base hits, scoring on balls that were knocked down by infielders. He's a gamer.
The Blue Jays have 19 hits, and Gruber does not have any of them.
That's as a player, that's when you're really disappointed. See, guys get 4 hits, 3 hits, and I can't get 1.
Roger Clemens. When will he pitch again? Roger does not talk to the media when he's not pitching. So he did not talk to us today to tell us how he was feeling after this start yesterday. Threw 93 pitches. Well, it's 3-2 now to Gruber. McGriff and Bell will follow. Well, Clemens would be on his proper rest if there was a playoff for Thursday. Boddicker would be on his proper rest for the season-ending game Wednesday against the White Sox, meaning 4 days of rest since the last start. The right side, Marty Barrett throws out Gruber. Gruber is 0 for 4 today. Now Fred McGriff, who is 4 for 5 with 3 batted in. Blue Jays 10, Boston 5. Well, Toronto heading for Baltimore. Frank Robinson has adjusted his rotation a little bit. He's having a hard time finding any healthy arms this time of year. He's got a lot of young pitchers. A couple of them have tired arms. He has shut them down for the year. But he has 3 pitchers who've been pitching well lately. Jose Mesa and also Dave Johnson and Ben McDonald. He's got those 3 set to go with adequate rest against the Blue Jays the next 3 nights. Jeff Torborg's White Sox will come in here.
He did not adjust his rotation.
No.
He just used the guys as the way that, you know, they were set up originally. And I wonder if that's completely right. You know, Frank adjusted his for Toronto and the other guys didn't adjust theirs for Boston. Matter for an argument.
Yeah, well, on the other hand, the White Sox are playing their final home games this weekend, the final games ever in Old Comiskey Park. They've got sellouts all through the weekend, and it's the hometown crowd. It seems that they're interested in catering to. Nice play by Burks, right at the wall, and he got it. It's the best hit ball of the day for Fred McGriff, and he does not get a hit on this one.
Well, the wind has died down ever so slightly. Now it picks up again. But it was a high fly ball in the left center field. McGriff is not sure if he got it. See the wind. You can see the flag wasn't blowing very hard at that time. Burks leaps up and makes a fine catch. Snow cone effect there. Watch, he times it perfectly and leaps up. I don't know if that should be called a catch or not. We might need an instant replay official on that.
Ball protruding from the
ball
edge of his glove
touched
hit
the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, we may need a instant replay, but I guess it's been 2 minutes already, so it's okay. Play can resume.
Listen, we don't even bring that up in this sport, Joe. George Bell, the hitter, 3 for 5 with 2 batted in. And it's 1 ball and 1 strike. 10-5, Toronto ahead. By the way, you saw the padding out there in the wall. When Burks made his leap, he was going up against the padding, the lower wall. That goes back, there you see it, to the 1975 World Series that you played in, Joe. Line drive right to balls. That ends the inning. That's the best hit ball for George Bell today. So the Blue Jays will have to be content with 10 runs and 19 hits. We'll go to the last of the 9th now. And we return now to Fenway Park. And Tom Henke is the new Toronto pitcher. Henke, who came on to protect a lead here Friday, and he said himself afterward he just didn't have his good stuff. And he lost that one. A big one to lose.
I wonder when a pitcher actually knows he doesn't have his good stuff. I mean, after the first batter, first pitch, second pitch. And is it feasible for him to tell the manager, I don't have my good stuff?
Well, how many times have you heard a guy say, when I warmed up, I was worried because I didn't have anything in the bullpen, and then he comes in and he pitches great.
Right.
Here's Brunansky. So you would guess probably one thing for sure, they don't really know until they're actually out there facing a live hitter. But it would also be pretty obvious to the manager right away, too, if he doesn't have his good stuff. The problem is when you go to your closer, usually you've used everybody else by that time. He's the last card that you play as Brunansky pops out to short. There's a new left fielder in the game as well, Rob Ducey. And when we saw George Bell leave after that line drive to third, he was really limping hard off the field.
Yes, he was. He's had problems with his right knee from the beginning of the ball game. And he tried to stretch it at first base to keep it loose, and he had to chase a few balls in the outfield, so smart move by Gaston to take him out of the ball game.
Toronto is heading for Baltimore. 3 games with the Orioles, the team with which they played right to the wire last year. They beat Baltimore for the division title in the final weekend of last season. And the Orioles would love to knock them off this year. Boston stays here to play Carlton Fisk and the White Sox. And Fisk, who is forever remembered for that home run against your Cincinnati Reds, Joe, in the '75 series in Game 6. And still hard to imagine him not being a member of the Red Sox. But since he went to Chicago, since he's gone there, he has done his best hitting by far against the Red Sox. He has worn them out over all these years. Jeff Stone comes out of the on-deck circle for the Red Sox. Friday night's hero. 2-0 the count to Pena, who is 2 for 3 in the game. And if there is a playoff between these two clubs Thursday, we will be there. We're sort of like the two amigos.
Yeah. And the game would be in Toronto, right?
That's right. We'll be at the
They
Sky
won
Dome.
the coin flip.
Used a Babe Ruth head coin. The Red Sox lost.
Well, now with Pittsburgh wrapping it up, and Oakland, of course, already having wrapped up the American League West, and Cincinnati the National League West, this is it.
Ooh, ball 4 to Pena.
And as Yogi Berra says, it ain't over till it's over.
Is Yogi still saying that? Thursday, the playoff, we'll have it for you. The time will be announced. Blue Jays people were telling me 4 o'clock on Thursday if there's a playoff at the Sky Dome, but we have not had that confirmed by anybody. Here's Jeff Stone, his first appearance since his heroic deed in the 9th inning Friday.
And they're giving him a standing ovation. I played with Jeff Stone with the Phillies, a young kid, and he's got lots of ability. He's never made it big in the big leagues, but has a lot of ability. Good runner.
He's been learning this game all the while. This is one of those guys who didn't know anything about the game.
Right.
Randy Kutcher talking before the game about Stone. He said when he was in San Francisco, he said the way they got Stone out, he would come up to bat, they would walk him and then pick him off. And Kutcher said, hey, that's nothing against him, but he's not. He's a fast base runner, but not a good base runner. And the amazing thing was in the 8th inning when he came in as a runner Friday on a pop fly to shallow right field to Junior Felix, he almost got picked off there for no good reason. Jeff Stone, he's a wonderful fellow. As a strike as Pena goes over to second. Stone was with the Baltimore Orioles during that 21-game losing streak in 1988.
Is that a fielder's indifference there, or do they give him a stolen base?
They're going to score at a stolen base, which is hard to understand. They get so few of them in Boston, I guess. The rule was made for that kind of an advancement, however. That's strike 3 to Jeff Stone. But this was no moment for a hero anyway. Stone was great after the exciting moments. As I heard the crowd roaring, my teammates were pounding me in the back, jumping all over me. I tell you what, I was on cloud 10. It's telling me, Joe, that he was the most excited person in history. I don't think anybody's ever been to cloud 10. 2 down in the 9th inning. The American League Eastern race will not be determined today.
Unless we have one of the all-time great comebacks.
Jody Reed, the hitter. Just 1 strike to count. 2 down. Pena at second. Tom Henke. Strike, and it's 0-2. Well, even in a victory here, as they watch Henke getting it done, the Blue Jays can't help, I'm sure, but say, if only this had been the Henke we threw out there Friday night.
Exactly.
It would be the Jays
with a 1-run game lead.
Yeah. Right now, it looks like Boston will get ready to host the White Sox with a 1-game advantage. We'll see game 2 of that series. 7:30 is the first half of our doubleheader on ESPN Tuesday night. Toronto heads for Baltimore. So the baseball world will be focused on those two cities at least for a night or two. The Red Sox, the so-called magic number for the Red Sox.
3.
Is 3. That's right. Any combination of Red Sox victories and/or Blue Jays losses equaling 3. So they could not do it until Tuesday at the earliest. Ground ball to short. This should do it. Fernandez throws him out, and the Blue Jays win one. They had to win this one, absolutely, and they did. 10-5 Toronto, beating Boston, and Jimmy Key, the veteran, came through in the clutch.
Well, I think the key was that Toronto got off to a good start. They broke out front, scored in the first inning, scored again in the second inning. I think that was important.
Big night of sports on ESPN. Baseball tonight at 6 o'clock, NFL primetime at 7, and then the entire NASCAR Winston Cup Holly Farms 400, and Sports Center at 11. Tuesday night, the first half of the doubleheader. It'll be the White Sox and the Red Sox from Fenway. Should be quite a showdown. Some of you will see the Baltimore and Toronto game, and that's the first half of the doubleheader. John Miller for Joe Morgan. Joe, it's been a great year. I enjoyed it.
Enjoyed it myself very much.
Maybe we'll see you Thursday in the playoff. Now, back to Bill Patrick at our studios.